Dawn, you're ready? Yeah. Hi, this is, so right now it is 7:04 and I call the meeting to order. So, can we have a roll call vote? Like a roll call, do we need a roll call?
I think we do need a roll call because we do have Catherine is at home
yeah,
via Zoom, so we do need to.
Well, not to call to order, though.
Not to call the order, but for any votes.
For any votes, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so
I think so.
Catherine is on Zoom today, so she's not feeling the pink of it. So. Say hi to her.
Hi, Catherine.
All right, so regular session, we'll go to consent agenda. All items,
Because we're doing Zoom, we have to read that thing that
oh.
you have that? I saved it. Where did I put it?
I sent it to Lisa.
Sorry for the
That's okay. No.
interruption.
I have it. Do you want me to read it?
Yes,
I know,
please
I-
read it. Oh,
Yeah.
we got it. Yes.
So, because this meeting is also on Zoom hybrid, pursuant to Governor's July 16, 2022 Act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, GLC 330A, paragraph 20, the Holliston School Committee will be using remote participation for this meeting. The audio of this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the town's webpage as soon as possible in accordance with keeping the public informed of actions during this meeting. At this time, a roll call attendance vote will be taken.
So I'll make a motion to approve a hybrid meeting for this evening. Second.
So, moved by Stacy, second by Dawn. Miss.
That was by me. I seconded.
Oh, moved by Stacy, second by Cynthia. Mr. Broski, Miss Lisnick,
Yes.
Miss Koshin,
Yes.
Miss Rafi,
Yes.
Miss Bigelow,
Yes.
Miss Gupta, yes,
And Miss Dr.
and
Savard?
Dr. Savard.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
We heard a yes.
All right. So
Now
we
move to
can
consent.
go to the regular session. Consent agenda. All items are considered to be routine and will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the committee so requests, in which event the item will be considered in its normal sequence of the agenda. Minute from the following school committee meetings, January 19, 2023. I've got a roll call vote for this?
No.
Nope.
You just do the full consent. agenda.
Okay, all right. Warrants, report from the chair on warrants signed on behalf of the committee. School committee warrants 23SCH. Man, I need my glasses, sorry.
Dash 29. Let me read the amount for $182,454.48. And then we have the student activity replenishment account warrant dated 1/17/23 for the high school for $1,925.78.
So I'll move to approve the consent agenda. Second.
So moved by Stacy, second by Amanda. Roll call vote. Miss Dawn, Miss Broski,
Yes.
Miss Lisnick,
Yes.
Miss Cochin.
So normally I would abstain on the minutes because I wasn't here. So do I vote, can I vote yes on the consent agenda, or do I have to abstain?
So you don't have to vote, you don't have to abstain from the minutes even if you weren't there because
Okay.
you're trusting that they were vetted
So
by the committee.
That's a yes.
Miss Rafi?
Yes.
Miss Bigelow?
Yes.
Miss Gupta, yes.
Dr. Savard?
Dr. Savard? Yes. Okay, all right. So communications, report from student representatives. Welcome, girls.
Hi. Okay, so we just had a group of students go to the DECA districts for the business club sort of organization, and the top 8 in each event qualified and go to states. There were a lot of people who qualified from that, and 3 groups brought home trophies. So now students are fundraising to go to states, and they're in Boston. So and then also freshmen and sophomores have semi on March 10th at the Warren Conference Center. National Honor Society is writing letters to the elementary school again. Those will be given out later on in the spring. And then the Theater One acts are this Friday and Saturday at 7.
In terms of sports, the winter sports season is nearing an end, and spring registration just opened up yesterday. Swim tied for first in the TBLs, and track has its TBL meet on Saturday. The biology MCAS is happening now for freshmen. The Jack Quinley 3v3 tournament is in mid to late March as of right now. The senior showcase auditions are beginning around next week, but updates will be posted on our class Facebook. The class of 2026 is selling Super Bowl squares as a fundraiser, and the class of 2025 is selling carnations next week as a fundraiser as well. And also we'll be having a blood drive in March.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move to school committee individual comments. Anyone? Yes, Ms. Christian?
I have one. So the CPAC's Special Education Parent Advisory Council is moving its coffee hours, which were going to be tomorrow, to next Friday, February 10th, 8:30 to 10 at Coffee Haven. They had to move them because of the renovations.
Blue Moon. It's not called Blue Moon, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well, they said Coffee Haven, but I thought it was keeping the name, actually.
I know, I said Blue Moon.
Yeah.
They said they're keeping the name for a while.
Yeah.
Oh,
they're
I might frequent that
Well,
establishment.
the place that we all know is Coffee Haven.
I see there's like located.
Good to know.
Known as.
I mean, yeah, in the morning, it would be odd to visit Blue Moon.
Thank you.
Bye, girls. Thank you.
I have something I just want to bring to the
Yes.
attention of the committee. So
Miss-
I don't have one here with me yet, but I wanted the committee to consider signing resolutions regarding potential changes to the circuit breaker that I want to bring to, hopefully they'll have a resolution, like a sample one for, or a template that I can follow through. Regarding some changes about the circuit breaker funding. And in addition, there is legislation at the House and the Senate for school meals for all kids, and I would like us to also support that initiative. Our local representative, James Arena DeRosa, is also a co-sponsor of HD 766. He is actually a third co-signer on that. So it's something that I want to bring to the committee, hopefully at our next meeting. So I just wanted to prep you for that.
Excellent. Thank you. Dawn, you
Oh,
had-
Catherine had something.
Yeah, Catherine.
I just want to say congratulations to the Miller 4th and 5th grade band. They appeared for their winter concert, and it was awesome. The best rendition of Hot Cross Buns I've ever heard.
I'm sure.
Oh, that's awesome. So sweet. Thank you, Catherine. Okay, so anyone else? Yeah, good. All right. So do we have any public comments,
Don't see anyone.
registration? Anyone?
No one's on the Zoom.
So no one is on Zoom. So we will
No, I
move.
didn't hear from anybody who was wanting to register.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
given that we have our principals and central office here, I would ask that we move, for presentations, that we move B, the mid-year goals, with our central office team and principals here to answer questions up first before the professional development.
Sure. So yes, let's move to mid-year goals. Central office principals, over to you guys. Looking forward.
All right, so you'll see and hear us talk again, tying everything back to our strategic initiatives. We presented in November our goals for the year at the district level, at the school, at each school level, and we tied them back to our strategic plan, our initiatives. You heard us earlier tonight present our priority needs that are also attached to all that information. So you're going to see a very similar discussion about this tonight. You've seen this before, our mission and vision, strategic objectives and core values. So we really tried to tie all the work that we're doing. I think you should all have in your packets documents for the district goals and where we are mid-year, as well as each school. They all updated the column for mid-year goals, and at the end of the year, we'll give you a more robust end-year goals update, and we'll have more data attached to that at that time. So we just kind of go through each arch and talk about some of the work we've done. And when we put this together, I was amazed to see in the short time how much we've actually already accomplished. It doesn't mean the work is anywhere near done, but the fact that we've taken on so much work and strategically tied to the 4 arches and objectives is amazing. So I'm kudos to all our team here tonight. So we're working to improve communication and access in order to further engage all stakeholders. And these are some of the key action steps that have already begun. We do have a district webmaster to streamline and update pages and support staff. I think we were at the meeting the other day with Lisa and Stacy and Catherine. I showed them some of the new work that's been done on the webpage. If you look at our school committee page, all our policies are updated. It's much more clean and streamlined. We've added a clean and improved nurses health page. We also have the wellness page updated. We have our Director of SEL and Equities page is going smoothly, and we're adding resources there. And Dan, are there any other pages that I'm forgetting at the moment that we've updated?
No, just all the curriculum work that's happening behind the scenes.
That will be coming up soon.
Very soon.
Yes. And then we talked today to our extended day interim director, Dion Julio, and we will be moving his page over as well. We're just trying to keep those clean lines where people can find information easily, so it's nice to have someone in charge of that work for us. Nurses are creating their centralized page, as I mentioned. We're all using newsletters. You've seen us send out a lot more small communication. We're trying to streamline that. And our goal ultimately between the website and with all the communications we're sending out is to make sure that our students and families of different languages are able to access that information. So that is the big push to get everything on the website, because any document that's not part of the website, for example, a PDF, will not translate. So everything that's on the website is translatable if it's in the right format, and that's why we're moving so much of this information over. Bright Arrow is still in place for shorter communication when we're not doing a more robust SMORE communication. As Joni mentioned, the standards by month and UBD Stage 1 documents will be starting to be posted in February, and that's going to be a big announcement. That'll be part of our community newsletter going out in February, and then we'll notify families when they can access a lot of that information as well. We also have the role that I've talked to you before in the year. We have a central registrar that is part of our Welcoming Resource Center. Unfortunately, that person is moving out of state and will no longer be with us, unfortunately. So we will be, you'll see that reposting, so I didn't want you to be surprised by that. It's just they're moving out of state, and we haven't really had a chance to get a lot of the resources off the ground. So once we get a new person in place, we'll be able to work on that initiative as well. And Dan's department did a great job on giving training on data privacy and cybersecurity on the PD Day in August. Any questions about Arch 1?
Yeah, who's our new webmaster?
Julie Marshall is our data specialist at the district level, and so we've added this role to her role. So she's able to help problem solve. She's doing a lot of anything that we ask her to do at the district level, but then she's also able to support staff at each building and help do some of the training as well.
That's great.
Susan, I guess just one thing, in terms of communication, as a district, our family is our district family who are part of it, but a lot of times you hear from the community that community members don't know about things. For example, incoming families at the pre-K level. Is there a way that information can be shared with the town? And I'm not sure what the mechanism is, but just something to think about, because literally on a daily basis, I'm referring people to the Placentino calendar for information on kindergarten or pre-K info nights.
Yeah.
And it's not something, maybe they go to the website and just don't know to look on the calendar. I don't know. I just think there is some information that we do need to share with the greater community.
Yeah, and you have seen us at times when we've had trying to push for hiring of staff, and we still have some shortages. I've asked Dan to reach out to Chris Mayo, and they're always very good about posting those things, so it is something to think about and linking a little bit more. Can you talk a little bit about just how you do communicate the preschool offerings?
Preschool and kindergarten, we use the cable access. don't use the newspaper anymore because that's kind of an old, not an old, it's a sorry. We use our website. Trying to think what else we do. We push out in our newsletters to share the news with people, but there is a pretty prominent, we have actually a registration page right on Placentino, so if they click on preschool or kindergarten, it has that. And then our front office staff is amazing, so they can call too. I know other towns sometimes have, and I don't think Holliston has this, like that have build, not like the
Sandwich boards.
Like not sandwich boards, even just like
Electronic ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Like around town that you can say, check out kindergarten, but I don't believe Holliston.
No, we actually have had some, and they did let us post when we asked, when we had the hiring flyer. I think we posted some of those positions up there. So I think it is something we could do. It's just something.
Where is
we
it located?
They move them around. Sometimes there's one in front of town hall.
Just a thought, like,
Actually,
this
a good
is
thought.
one of the things that there are sometimes just that type of information that people want to know, or I don't know, promotion of some events like the theater events or something,
Do we use Facebook or any social media at all?
Yes, Facebook.
Oh, sorry, we do that. We also post on our Instagram page, and for more information to come about social media. I don't want to jump ahead.
We'll talk about that. There's a lot of other places, but it's not a bad idea for families that wouldn't already access to maybe post some of those things.
On like Holliston Moms Group or Holliston
that's
Happy or stuff like that. That like
Yeah, I think that's,
so people that don't follow the school ones.
Yes, I think for incoming students particularly, that might be helpful. Social emotional well-being, Arch 2. Jariel updated you recently, and Jess as well, so you've heard a lot of this before, but I'll just read some of it. You know that we've done so much work on safe and supportive schools thus far. We shared the action plan and launched in the building enrichment of our district SEL mental health MTSS plan, which is aligned towards DESE practices. We provided ongoing professional development, strategic coordination through student support professional team, multiple modules there. We continued our work with the DESE Academy consultants, our SEL teams at each school, PBIS, SEB, which I'm blanking out on the acronym, so all that. Social emotional behavioral schools for structural sustainability. We've done a lot of work with articulating student leadership and our opportunities for student connections, developing future connection points, triangulating with school climate and culture surveys, which I know that we shared the last time as well, last couple of meetings as well, that we're doing culture and climate surveys at all levels and also with staff at all levels. By March, we are hoping that we will have completed those climate culture surveys with all of our grades 3 to 12. And we'll be reporting out general data trends, utilizing that data and reflecting on what other tools we could be embedding. We are well underway with our equity audit. In fact, we just got another request, which I'll be sharing with some of you, asking for more information, because as they started to interview, all of you were interviewed. All of us, I think, at the table have been interviewed thus far. Students at middle school and high school being interviewed. And then they're looking at all the data that we've shared with them that they've requested. The next, because of the interviews, now they're asking for another phase of information, so we got to get that to them in a timely manner before February vacation. So don't get mad at me if I have to request some of that information, but I know you'll help me with it. And then we've been doing a ton of work through PD for culturally responsible educational framework and culturally responsive teaching in general. So I said a lot there, because I feel like you have experts in the room that can speak to any of the specifics of any of this arch as well.
Can you just highlight the event that you're holding next week that is super important for parents to hear about and attend?
Do you need to come to a mic?
We didn't want to steal your thunder, so.
Thank you.
Hi. So March 8th, we're doing February 8th, we're doing a Metro West Family Night. So basically what that is, we're actually putting together a series under Safe and Supportive Schools of different educational opportunities for the community. And one of those, the first one we're doing is around the Metro West Health Adolescent Health Survey. Specifically, I know when we presented it this year, it had been something presented, but something that hadn't been wrestled with within our community, but also to think about how do the trends that we see there impact what we're trying to do in our schools, right? And trying to make those connections. And we also feel that a more informed community also reinforces the support for our schools for the work we're doing. So it's part one of a part two series. Part one is going to be just understanding what is this survey, how do we use it at schools, how does it drive the work we're trying to do across the tiers. There'll be a part two, date to be determined, in which we're working with Holliston Youth and Family Services to make sure that also community understands what are some of the community resources available that also speak to that data. So that's being hosted by myself, Jess Beatty, and we're also working with consultants, the Education Development Center, the EDC. They're the ones who've conducted the surveys over the last 10 years across Metro West. So we'll also get a chance to hear what some of that data looks like across our communities, and then what does it look like in a local way. So we hope that you're able to join us via Zoom. There's a flyer floating. The link is right on there, and we're hoping to have a successful night.
Will it be recorded?
So we're wrestling with that, and let me tell you why. Because I think that there's parts of it that we can, and there's parts of it that we may not. We don't want to record parts where people might want to ask some really tough questions that might lower kind of people's ability to want to ask those questions, but we're thinking about recording the front part. So one of the things that we've wrestled with, and we've been talking with some of our consultants on how do they do this, is sometimes they'll record the presentation offline and then make it available. So then when you're online on Zoom, it's more authentic. You're not worried about the recording piece. So we're kind of wrestling with that to figure out what's the best possible way to do that.
Because I just think it's so important that people see and hear about the data. But next week, there seems to be a lot of stuff going on. And so I just think it's so important that, so whatever you can give would be.
And this is part, as part of our strategic plan over the next coming years, this is something we're going to continue to do, right? So this isn't just going to be a one and done. We're going to continue to kind of host events like this where we kind of talk about that, but talk about the work happening across our schools that speak to some of that.
Yeah. No, thank you. This is good stuff.
Thanks.
And we'll send a reminder out early next week. Right?
Yes.
All right, Arts 3 Teaching and Learning. Joni's here to answer any specific questions for that. But we already mentioned that the standards by month and UBD Stage 1 documents will start to be posted, and we'll communicate out to families when that, doesn't mean it's all going to be up, but we'll have a lot coming up because they're working behind the scenes, and we don't have to make it live until we're ready to make it live. And training is happening with Miller on culturally responsive teaching. Equity audit was already mentioned. We've talked about the curriculum review process before. That was finalized in 2022. The wellness curriculum review has been debriefed and recommendations are being worked on. We're also working on the math and secondary ELA curriculum review for starting in fall of 2022. So there's been a ton of work behind the scenes that's happening, and you'll start to see that work unfold more transparently to the public as we move these initiatives forward. Big ideas for each building were identified and year-long plans were created. We've talked about this before as well. Each time we have PD, it's really nice to see. It's a lot of extra work, but the efforts are really helpful when we connect the dots for staff. We show them this is why this work is important because it falls under Arch 1 Strategic Initiative 2, or this is why it's important in teaching learning. And I think staff are seeing why this is the sustainability of how do we keep this work going through for the 5 years of this plan, and how do we make sure that we're not just doing the one-off and one and done. And we're, as we roll it out, I think we're getting better and better. The PD on Friday was amazing. I know Joni's going to talk to that as well. But even with that, with our individual presenters, they connected to the dots of all the initiatives and the work that we're doing as well. Our tech integration specialists also had their PD on January 27th for emerging technology. Digital resources have been inventoried. I know Dan talked about that before, that we're really making sure that we're not using resources that we cannot be using anymore. So we're really cleaning up on and making sure that staff, it's not that we're trying to take things away from people, but we legally have to be compliant with what we can offer for staff. And then all these resources were launched on January 3rd. December PD Day for both Miller and Placentino was on the Vision of a Graduate, because again, that was one of our initiatives we talked about in the strategic plan. And I asked Nicole, it's been a big discussion for the last few years at the high school. Can you please bring it down to the elementaries? And we all work together. They all work together, and they really targeted, this is what it looks like pre-K 2, this is what it looks like in grades 3 and 5, and I think we have one coming up at Miller in March. So that work is continuing, because as we talk about, it doesn't start in high school, it's pre-K all the way up. And then we have a district-wide assessment calendar that's been created and put in place as well. So I'll pause there if you have any questions under Arch 3.
I was just going to ask about MCAS, because MCAS in April and May. Is that across the two? I was just wondering. I also only look at the Rams one. And is it all going to be in the April and May instead of like the March and?
We start maybe the last couple days of March,
Okay.
but goes April, May.
Or March and May.
March and
June.
Yeah, in February. All the way. No, just because I remember last year there was some discussion around like that we would have them earlier in the year and that we weren't getting some of that.
You don't have lunch.
They didn't.
We
learn
get the window they
We-
give us,
We
unfortunately.
did delay 2
Yeah.
weeks in doing the 5th grade, so we aren't doing the week after vacation
Gotcha.
or the first week in April. So
Right.
we were able to delay a little bit.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
All right, I'll move on to Arch 4. Talent and resources. So as you know, this has been a struggle we talked about this during priority needs as well. It's really been a struggle to recruit, develop, and retain talented, diverse staff, to personalize student learning, and identify funding opportunities to improve schools. That continues to be a struggle. However, some of the things that we're trying to do are really making our orientation and our NTI and mentoring programs, we've been reorganizing them and trying to make them more robust. And mentor training has also been provided because we haven't done that in a few years with COVID. So I believe all of our current mentors have been having updated training to get them current with what we're practicing. We have a 5-year technology replenishment plan for student and staff devices as well as infrastructure. And we are working with appropriate stakeholder groups to plan for the future. As you know, we've talked about the facilities review that we're trying to move forward to help us with the SOI process. Right now, we don't have a vendor. We thought we had one, so we are now seeking additional potential vendors, because if I can't find one soon, I may not be able to get that facilities review in place in time for the SOI process. And we're engaging with the budget subcommittee. We'll go in more depth about the 5-year capital plan in the next upcoming weeks. We did develop new org charts this past year or so and job descriptions to reorganize the curriculum team and address needs. In the fall, we all had in the summer additional evaluation training to try to recalibrate and make sure we're kind of all looking at it with the same lens as how we evaluate staff. And then we had all staff trained in the fall as well. We're very close to being able to roll out our updated learning walk protocols, so we'll be meeting on February 14th with all of our administrators. We worked as our full admin team in the last 2 monthly meetings that we had, and we worked in small groups to kind of put the pieces in place. So I'll be sharing out the final pieces to this team, and we'll be having our first learning walk at Miller, I believe, on February 28th. I believe.
Probably.
Dates got changed, so if that's the new one, that's the new one.
Okay, but we think it's February 28th, but anyhow, we're just doing a soft rollout, and they're non-evaluative. It's really about, we want to get back in classes as a team to say, let's see what's going well in the schools and what's connected to our strategic plan. So it's going to be a real soft rollout this year, and then next year we'll get back to kind of what I would consider more normal. We'll be getting reports on the general data trends related to climate and culture, as we mentioned earlier as well. Those surveys are going to be really important, and I think we spent the bulk of last year creating those, if I'm not mistaken, Jerry, with the different teams at the schools. If you think that, yes.
Yes. We piloted it with RAM. They had been doing it actually before, and from there we learned best ways to do some of that, and then we've aligned across this year. So there's a NEAS one happening that just actually happened. Rams just did it last month, maybe, and Miller's coming up in a week.
And some of that might come out on their slides as well, but we really think this is important data to be looking at as a district. And that after each full day and half day PD, Joni and Dan send out the PD surveys, and we're looking at all that data to determine which offerings maybe fell flat from what we were hoping to accomplish. And then the PD committee works with Joni as well and reassess what we'd be offering for next year. But I really think the important thing is to not have these one and done. Are we doing things that are repetitive topics that can build and sustain over time? And that's really ultimately the goal. I'll pause there in case we have any questions before we move on to the schools. All right. Holliston High School.
So I'm up first. So I'll go through the presentation. I'm going to be fairly brief just because we presented a lot of the data a few weeks ago that we then used to inform instructional practices. And I think in that presentation, we also talked about some of the mid-year updates just sort of naturally came out. So we look at communication practices. Dr. Pesca talked about the newsletter. The high school has been sending out our monthly newsletter, and that really is a collection of all sorts of different fun events that are happening at the school, helpful information about upcoming events, and then also just pieces that you need to know about the school initiatives that we're working on. We're also looking at increased translation services, identifying areas that we need to do a better job of having them be accessible to everyone. So whether that's an ASL translator or whether that's a translation in our written communication, we're looking to identify those areas, in particular with some of the events that are coming up, and make sure that it's standard practice that we have those as accessible as possible. And that also includes recording events. So even though we may be back to in-person, now that we've had the option to Zoom and record in different ways, it's become our standard practice to record program of studies evening and some of those other events in case there are families that can't attend in person, and then we make those available on the site as well. We have a group of students that are working on creating an information packet, for lack of a better way to describe it. It'll be digital and accessible online, that features more information about particular events and just high school procedures in general. So it's something that we've been working on for several years. I typically, at the beginning of the year, when the pep rally is coming up, I'll send a more detailed email about the pep rally when I send that out, that lets people know what exactly the pep rally is, what colors do students wear for, to show off their school spirit. And we try to do that for various events throughout the year, but having that be accessible on the website, so that then also when we're talking about translation services, or if we're talking about students who are coming in who, some of it too is coming out of the pandemic and relearning school and relearning basic procedures at the high school. So we're working on that, and of course our student feedback informs the decisions we make on that and what we're putting together, both online as well as looking at our incoming ninth grade orientation and what adjustments we need to make for that. Our student advisory leaders really run that, and they do a great job, and so we've been meeting with them regularly to get their feedback on the advisory program as well as all other aspects of the high school. And that's sort of been standard practice for years, but we're trying to now put it in a written form online as well that is accessible. In terms of social emotional well-being, this one probably has the most on here. We've been doing a lot. You've already heard some of the different structures that we put in place. I'll talk a little bit about year one of the Social Emotional Learning Mental Health Academy. There are a group of individuals, a team that's been formed at the high school. Jeriel and I are kind of leading that. We're looking at what are the different supports that are in place for Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3, and what I mean by that are what are the supports that are in place for all students, what are the supports that are in place for groups of students based on identified need, and then what are some more intensive, high-level, or individual needs, supports for students who might have those needs. So we're looking currently for year one at analyzing what do we have in place. We've had a number of successful meetings, and one of the things that's come out of that is actually building what is going to look like a menu of services, again, to publicize all the great offerings that we have at the high school. We have phenomenal counselors, but if every student doesn't know that, then it's hard for them to access those phenomenal counselors. So we're looking at, right now, creating that menu of supports as we go along, and then that naturally allows us to identify where there might be some gaps. Maybe we have more supports that are available to everyone, but we might not have as many supports that are available for Tier 2 or some small groups, or maybe vice versa. And so it's really allowed us as a pretty diverse group coming together to identify those different supports and look at what we might want to make adjustments for next year. All of our counselors have been integrated into one large counseling department. So that's our school counselors, guidance, our school counselors, as well as our clinicians. And that has been really nice in terms of the increase in communication and the shared resources throughout. So they meet as a large group every other week, and then they meet in their the clinicians meet together, and the school counselors based on what they're tackling for that particular week. So that's been really helpful. I've talked a couple of times throughout the year already about revising or revamping our advisory program. Taryn Lang and Sarah Kuhn are doing a phenomenal job of reimagining the advisory program. I would say when we look at the pandemic over the last several years, one of the things that was probably hit the hardest as far as our programs in the school was advisory. The advisory program was essentially decimated. It took us about 10 years to build up the advisory program, and then the pandemic really put us back to zero. The advantage of being put back to zero is you can reimagine it and rebuild it, and that's been really fun. It's been fun to watch that process. It's a lot of work, and Taryn and Sarah are doing an amazing job, and the student advisory leaders are really integral to that as well. So our juniors, this group of juniors who then go in and implement the lessons with the ninth graders in particular. So that has been really nice, but that's a fantastic place to really infuse social emotional learning skills into that. So that's been a lot of the work. We've also done some whole school lessons on culture building. So it's been a really nice place to, I think, carry on some of the work we've been doing the last few years, but in a very specific and sort of grade appropriate way to do it. CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy training, all of our counselors throughout the district are involved in that. At the time I put this together, we had gone through about half of modules. I think now we're at 4, and that varies a little bit throughout the district, and then implementing what they're learning in that training when they're working individually with students. We had Landon Callahan from Safe Schools come and do a training for our faculty on LGBTQ. He partnered with one of our students who came in on their day off and actually partnered to help with that professional development, which was really wonderful to see. And it was an incredibly engaging professional development experience, and one that we want to follow up. He was able to do a follow-up session with our wellness teachers. He did a follow-up session with our counselors on specific needs in various areas. And then our team leaders, our captain's council is doing really well. That, again, we weren't able to do the group meetings necessarily during the pandemic, so it's really nice to see that come back on board. They have really great discussions across all of the different seasons. Sometimes it's all of the captains together, sometimes it's season specific, but that's a nice place where they talk about what does it mean to be a leader. They just had a recent conversation around how do you continue to be motivated and be a great team member and great to your opposing team when your own team's not doing so well. So how do you keep that motivation going, right? It's easy, or easier, I would argue, when you're winning, but when you're not, how do you still work and practice and work on those skills, and how do you still model good sportsmanship when it might be more difficult, right? And so there's some really great conversations that are coming out of that. And then we're in year 2 of partnering with the Anti-Defamation League. The middle school and the high school, I know, have been working towards this. Last year, we both earned our distinctions for No Place for Hate based on several school-wide lessons that we did. We were really proud of that work. We're in year 2. We've already done some whole school culture building, specifically through advisory. We have, and I just sent the email out before we came into the library, but we have Mikey Pullen coming in next Friday the 10th for a school-wide assembly, really focusing on racism, discrimination, what happens when students are excluded or sort of the othering, so that's a different group, that's not us, or all of those pieces that come together, and how those individual experiences then impact the community as a whole. So we're really looking forward to that. We had a couple of educators from the district go and actually see him present in Weymouth, and we'd heard incredibly positive things from some of the other communities that have had him come in. So we're looking forward to that. That is going to be a week from Friday, and then after the presentation, we'll do a follow-up activity back in classrooms, really highlighting some of the different themes that he presented and starting to look at where do we want to continue the conversation as we move forward. For teaching and learning, some of this has already been discussed in terms of the equity audit, so I'll jump right to the vision of a graduate. We've partnered with Abby Benedetto. I talked about this at the beginning of the year. She has been actually virtually partnering with us for professional development because she lives in California, but she's been really working with us to craft some of the different professional development opportunities specific to the vision of a graduate. She's actually going to be in person next week, so I'm excited about that. She'll be in the area, so she's going to be with us on the half PD day. The big focus has been taking the great draft of the vision of a graduate, and I say draft because I think it's always going to be, it should always be a work in progress, right? When we looked at the vision of a graduate before the pandemic, and we were ready to roll it out right before the pandemic, how we look at it, the lens that we use now is so different than it was even a couple of years ago, and I'm so thankful for that, right? The lens from experiencing the pandemic, a lot of the work we've done around anti-bias work and microaggressions, how we're looking at it from an equity standpoint and accessibility standpoint. It's a very different lens now, so it's actually, I'm thankful that we kind of had to press pause for a little bit. But what we're doing is we're taking the criteria that explains each of the 6 categories and turning those into really specific performance outcomes, so that it's wonderful if it says we want to respect all individuals. Absolutely. What does that mean? How can you see that? How do we know if we're making progress towards that with our students? And so we're rewriting some of that to be really specific performance outcomes. So we actually, just as of yesterday, kind of finished that with a small design team. During the December PD, the teachers the educators worked really hard on finalizing some of those performance outcomes. And what was nice about it is it's not just about changing the wording. They were having really meaningful conversations about, well, what does this mean then with working with students? How do we develop these skills? How do we adjust our lessons? So now, as we move into next week, they're going to be using the time to really craft lessons that are specifically tied to skills that we want to develop in the vision of a graduate, or adjusting those, and then looking at how can we explicitly talk to kids about why we're doing it. So we have this lesson, and it connects, for example, to effective communicator. So now we need to be more explicit when we talk to kids about why do we care that it connects to effective communicator. How does this prepare them for life, and why is this lesson contributing to that? So it's a lot of work that we're putting in sort of behind the scenes, but every step of the way, the vision of a graduate, we're living it in the school. It's really exciting to see it come off of the wall from that pretty poster to actually informing day-to-day decisions in the building. So that's been really rewarding to see, and that's been a huge team effort. And then one other thing I want to highlight is our goal moving forward, and this is not going to happen by the end of this year, this is a multi-year process, but our goal moving forward is for our students eventually to be running their own IEP meetings. So we need to scaffold that. We need to work with students as they move along. But the end goal would be if a student has everybody come together for their IEP meeting, that they're running that meeting and they're thanking everybody for attending, and they're saying, all right, we're going to hear from this educator who's going to talk a little bit about testing in this area. Here are the accommodations that are in place that I think are still really helpful, and this is why. These are some accommodations that maybe I don't need anymore, or maybe need to be adjusted. And that takes some process to get there, but I think it's incredibly important. And that, again, ties into the vision of a graduate with self-advocacy and understanding your own skills, and then how can you effectively communicate those skills to others. So I just want to highlight that because we're excited about that. And then I've talked a lot about the computer science endorsement of global citizens, so I will move on from there.
Just a quick question, Nicole.
Yeah.
Is it, or just it's 14 enough that they can participate, isn't it still? Yeah.
Yep. And then for talent and resources, again, I think Dr. Kuska covered this in terms of some of the ways that we're looking at our subscriptions, our technology. We're working with Dan and the team on this, and then continuing to work on the evaluation system. The one piece that I don't have in a slide or in a particular arch is NEASC, and we are in the process of a pretty massive undertaking with doing an entire self-reflection or self-study on our school in preparation for the collaborative conference, which will be in October. So a team of 5 people will be coming in to view our school. The way that NEASC happened, so the New England Association of Schools and Colleges that accredit our school, when they came in 2012, it was a very different process. It was a much more of a one-size-fits-all process. It was a much bigger process in terms of the number of individuals that were coming in, and they were utilizing standards that they've since moved away from. The 2020 standards, I think, are much better and connect absolutely to the work that we're doing as a district. You can see it in all the schools, and a big piece of what they're looking for is the vision of a graduate. So we're actually ahead of the game in that, which is really nice. It's a really good feeling to be ahead of where we need to be when they're coming in. That being said, there's going to be lots of areas that we'll highlight where we feel like we're doing well, and other areas where we feel like we need to work on. Jerry will reference the surveys that went out. So there was a survey that went out to the community, to faculty, and to students, and those were NEASC surveys, so they were connected directly to the foundational elements or the principal indicators that are analyzed in the NEASC report. But that goes across all 4 arches. I mean, it's a pretty big undertaking. Our goal is to have our report finalized It's ambitious, so we've left a little bit of space, but our goal is to have it finalized sometime in March so we can get it to the faculty with a vote on it, because we actually need 2/3 vote, or 2/3 majority voting in approval of the NEASC report. We're going to do that at a faculty meeting in April. Likely what happens is some of the standards are approved, others we need to go back and revise, so then that gives us May to come back at the faculty meeting. By the end of the school year, we'll have the report, and I would imagine that we'll probably be doing a separate presentation towards the end of the school year on the self-reflection, what we've found, how that's connected to the different pieces of the school, and then preparing ourselves for the October visit for the collaborative conference.
So we'll pause there before moving on in case you have any specific questions to anything Nicole addressed. All right, I think we're ready to move on.
To Jamie then.
Hi, everybody. To speak to Arch 1 on communication, I know Dr. Kuska indicated as far as our use of SMORE, so I think we most have seen kind of an updated version of the Rams News communication that we've kind of continued to send out, and the opportunities that has provided for us as well. Additionally, sort of some consistent use of our Instagram feed to kind of really post some of the images and some of the things on a regular daily basis that are happening at the middle school. Additionally, our middle school job alike and actually assistant principal job alike, Mr. Conant will be at one tomorrow as well, have been working consistently to kind of assess each other's practices and understand across a variety of things, communication being one of them, but even schedules as well. Many have been trying a variety of different strategies over the last couple of years as we return from COVID or in the middle of things to kind of assess what strategies for communication, what strategies for scheduling, what strategies are being utilized for staffing to kind of fill that. So we've really felt kind of amongst area principals as far as that support there. Moving on to Arch 2, we have really ramped up, and I would say are proud of kind of our MTSS structures that we have built in there. So these are our tiered systems and supports. Specifically, one of our major year 2 pieces, but year 1 of implementation is PBIS that we're a part of there. Additionally, as far as a social emotional support, our social groups that we have, our social emotional wellness groups that we have as well. PBIS has kind of followed a variety of arcs as we've gone through the year. You have a burst at the start of interest, and then you kind of wane, and then you kind of regroup, and that's been kind of our kind of roller coaster as we've gone kind of throughout the year. But we have had a decline in the number of discipline referrals over the course of the year in all 3 grades, and minus some major incidences are excited about kind of the overall behavior of this group of the school. Additionally, we've kind of incorporated some restorative justice professional development for our teachers, but then are implementing those structures as consequences or actions that we have for students versus traditional consequences that we would do. We had a giant pile of mulch in our courtyard, and if you've been out there, that's been spread across the building by some of our students as well. One thing that's been, I would say, a challenge this fall or this first half of the year within social emotional learning has been counseling for us. We've had some recent turnover at the beginning of the year, and then in the middle of the year, so some new faces. So bringing that up to speed and kind of onboarding that has been a major focus of ours, but also has been what I've noticed kind of amongst our data a limiter to kind of propelling ourselves where I would love to be as well. Our peer leadership, we We're looking to, we weren't able to connect with the Anti-Defamation League as far as their peer leadership work, but do hope to kind of continue, link ourselves explicitly to the ADL peer leadership group, official group to the ADL for next year. But we are running a peer leadership group run by Sarah Peters this year. We are linking it to our Safe and Supportive Schools lessons. So we have a group that's started to meet, and Mrs. Peters is partnering with Mr. Vernay as well to kind of work on that work to make sure that we've got some leaders kind of driving a lot of our Safe and Supportive Schools lessons as well. Speaking of our Safe and Supportive Schools lessons, we've done, thus far, we've done microaggressions, slurs and biased language, LGBTQIA communities, and anti-Semitism as well. And later this month, we're excited to have back after a long reprieve, Miriam Lazan back to a visit. It'll be virtual as well, but this is a Holocaust survivor that we've utilized in district for a number of years, and these are an important next 5 years as our Holocaust survivors are reaching the tail end of when they will be available for us as well. So it's being using this as much of an opportunity to kind of have that living history as much as we can for our students. As Mr. Bernay had indicated, we had, at the end of December, but before the break, we had given our first culture and climate survey for the year, looked at a little bit of that data, and we'll give our second one towards the tail end of the year there. And we use that data to kind of align and match up to our Metro West Adolescent Health Survey data that Mr. Bernay will be presenting on to the community the next week.
Can I just pause for a second? And I know that you and I are working, Sarah Kuhn at the high school is working with 2 11th grade students with the Celtics playbook, which I've shared with you before. But the next phase is now we're going to be selecting 30 students at the middle school who'll be trained to do lessons with peers at the middle school as well. So that's exciting. So we'll have more on that to come.
Okay. To Arch 3 Teaching and Learning, we're in kind of year 2 of a significant literacy focus. We have kind of our overarching theme of language matters. I talked earlier about language-based work that we're doing at our level, but also we have our universal or common writing rubric that we have across all courses. We just did we had our formative evaluations, so I got to check everybody's goal progress and data that they've completed at this point, and all have given or utilized their common assessment, have done the analysis and tuning to each other, and have kind of implemented strategies and interventions for those students based on where that writing is. But that helps us when we're thinking about overarching even tier 1 kind of language-based work, is just kind of aligning the words that we use with students and the value of that alignment of that language as we use different, but as we know, synonymous words in different classes. Our students oftentimes view them as totally different concepts, and it's important for us to have some of that unifying language that we have there. Our first STAR assessment to our second STAR assessment of math and reading, that we've shown growth there, which is actually better than where we were last year. So we've shown some more improvement than where between our first and second last year. So between our first and second this year is improved. If that continues to track like a trend relative to last year, we should hopefully have significant academic improvement as we did last year as well. But we'll keep an eye, and hopefully the value of STAR, the value of a benchmark assessment, is that we can predict that and show those trends. And we only have 2 years to kind of compare that. So if that tracks, then those assessments are demonstrating that we can track that improvement and whether the practices, things we're implementing, are having an impact or not. I'm actually ready to move on to Arch4. We've implemented a strategy amongst our teachers. We've shifted the name of our faculty meetings to town hall meetings to just kind of the more inclusive kind of language of sharing. But we have also included in all of our town hall meetings a feedback mechanism. So we ask for feedback, and we have an opportunity for them to share and provide feedback. During each one of our town hall meetings, and we're able to kind of look at that and see what changes or adjustments to practice that we need to do as well. Similar to the prior slide is that implementation of the climate and culture survey as well, and just want to continue to kind of analyze that process. Within our talent and resources, something that we will be digging in again is that we did our first survey of the implementation of our new schedule this earlier in the year, and had some things that did stick out as far as major changes and adjustments we're going to make to the new schedule, but some things that were unclear. We will get that second survey before the February break to assess whether some other key factors that need to be modified within our new schedule need to be made, and have continued that partnership. We have an outside consultant we've been using that's been helping to kind of do some of that work, and along with our student, we survey students as far as the progress of the survey. I know Dr. Kuska as well has a student group that she's met with to ask a lot of that information, so that the schedule that we're utilizing is a product of student and staff feedback.
Questions for middle school updates? Okay. Mr. Kime.
Absolutely. So, Arch 1, we can go to the next slide. A big part of how we're sharing out with the community is Instagram and Facebook. We're trying to update that a couple times a week with pictures of what's going on in our building. One of the things we sent out, we actually sent a survey out. We had a door decorating contest. Every one of our teachers participated. I was surprised. Some of them came down to the last wire, but everybody participated.
A little bit of peer pressure.
And I tell you what, we did parades around the building so the students could see all of them. They got the vote. The teachers got the vote. That was our winning door there. We shared that out. But, it was a lot of fun, in the building, and we were able to get that out to the community. One thing Allie Curley has created, she's created a podcast, and she's put it up on YouTube, and she's trying to do more of these so that the community can go on and hear what a class is doing. We actually had a teacher at our PD day this past week teaching teachers how to do podcasts. And, I already had teachers reaching out to her in, doing podcasts with their students and putting that out there. The other thing that I didn't put down here is, starting with the strategic plan last year, Travis Ahern was there, and he was talking about, what do we do with the seniors in town? So he put me in communication with the senior center. Allie Curley and I have been meeting with the director over there. They have put it in their newsletter for a sign up, and we have a group of seniors coming this month to meet in one of our classrooms. It's our pilot to work on some writing, to just have that communication across the community. And we're really excited about it. We have a meeting tomorrow morning just to finalize the details that we have. Going on to the next slide. Social-emotional well-being. We know the pandemic didn't do anybody any justice, and so Jerry L. was able to run a trauma-informed classroom through Leslie?
Yep, through Leslie.
Through Leslie, and 8 of my teachers signed up for that. It's so popular, they're doing round 2. in March, and so I've got them signing up for that, and I believe they're going to do another run of this first one later in the spring. But it's honestly something I think all of us need to be aware of. You know, we've got these students in front of us that are really struggling, and how do we support them? We may not be able to see it, but inside they're struggling with what they're doing. Our grade 5 leadership team, a lot of fun. They come up with creative ways to collect food pantry items. One was if they collected a certain number of food items, they got to do a pie in the face of Mrs. Linares and I, and we did that right before vacation. That was a lot of fun. We were able to, again, put that out to parents or classrooms, the video of it happening. Just, you know, we like to have fun over it, you know. We've really ramped up, and I got Sarah Nam and Erica Linares, big key front runners in our PBIS at Miller, we've implemented the Swiss. It's actually a database where teachers, put in when, students are misbehaving. And it's called Swiss, School-Wide Information System. What we're finding in the pyramid that I'm showing you is that 90% of our students have 0 or 1 referrals. So we sometimes feel like that top tiny little bit at the top but sometimes that's running our school. But most of those are in that top area. And so with 90% only getting 1 or 0, we're doing something right in the building. We still need to figure out that top little corner. But I do think we've got to give ourselves a little pat on the back of how this is working. We've also had a tiered fidelity inventory walkthrough. We had somebody from outside of the school come in and look at and interview teachers, interview students, and just, do they know what we're doing? Do they know RISE? What can you tell me about it? And so, when we triangulate all that, we are doing pretty well in our school. And so there is a lot we need to work on, but we need to give ourselves a pat every now and then. We are giving, next week, we put it out to parents, we are giving our climate and culture survey to make sure every student gets it. We're going to take like 10 minutes out of engineering or digital learning. We put out an opportunity for parents to come in, and it's 11 questions. It's really straightforward and nothing really deep. Do you like school? Do you feel safe in school? So nothing at our elementary level that goes pretty deep. Next Wednesday also, we're going to send a parent survey out so that they'll have an opportunity to do that. And at our staff meeting next week, we're going to have the teachers all fill one out. We had the teachers fill one out last spring, and we got some valuable data that our Climate and Culture Committee was able to look at over the summer to see, what things could we put in place this year to make Miller a more, a place they want to come to work every day. Arch 3, on the back side of here, sorry. We talked about earlier, it was mentioned, having sustained professional development. This year, as I brought up, talking about our MCAS results, we could really see our writing was not where we wanted it to be. We've had Bill Atwood, thanks to PTO and thanks to Joni for funding. He has come in and done a day-long professional development. He came in January and modeled in 5 different classrooms in the building, and he'll be coming back in March he'll be in the classroom and half-day PD. What we found in writing is kids don't have stamina to write. And so how do we get them to do some of these quick writes? So we're looking at focus correction areas. And, teachers don't have to correct everything. But how do you get kids to do a quick respond in writing? and again, if kids were remote or if kids were in the classroom, writing was probably one of those things that fell away. And so this isn't a program, it's just, focusing back in that writing's important. And what we want teachers to say is this isn't something you have to do in isolation. You can do this in social studies. You can do this in science. You can do it in math. And so we've had our math science teachers participating in the PD as well. Our curriculum, our pre-K to 12 curriculum people have been working with the grade levels and the unified arts teachers to map the curriculum, as Dr. Kuska talked about, getting that up on the web. Again, it's a process. We're not totally there. We've got a daily 30-minute win block, and I do think I know we're seeing gains in student growth. And so we're really trying to, like one teacher might work on phonics, another might work on phonemic awareness, another teacher might be working on word study. And based on what we've seen from the data that we have from them, we're able to switch them through groups. We had our first run, we did our data analysis, we switched it up. We also listened to the teachers to, what was working and what wasn't, and how could we, look at how we changed it a little bit. So we listened to them and we created new groups. We're going to do a longer period of time because they felt like if you only had them 15 days, you're just starting to get to know them, and how do you keep moving forward with some of them. But we really do find that that's doing well. And, the growth at the bottom, this is preliminary, okay? They just took it the last couple of weeks. But one of the things that the STAR software, Renaissance, were able to do, we're able to see the growth from the fall. And in ELA, it was 72% growth. That's not achievement, but that is growth across the building. And 50 is where you're supposed to be. Above 65 is exceeding. And so I'm really proud in what we're seeing in where we're going with that. We've got a lot of work to do. And remember, STAR is a tool. It's not the end-all, be-all. We're triangulating it with DIBELS results and DRAs and BAS assessment. So we can go on to the next one. So, a lot of people looked at the talent and resources. I went way down at the bottom, and there's a different one in there, and looking at the climate and the culture and that sort of thing. We had a committee this summer look at that, and what could we do to improve? So what are some of the things that we're doing? We took our PLC survey that the teachers gave us, or the climate survey that the teachers gave us last year. They did not like how PLCs were running at the grade levels. So we worked with them. How do you want to see it run? And we had a grade leader meeting 2 weeks ago, said, is it better? Every one of them said, yes, it is more effective in how we're doing it this year. And so that was good. We're having staff outings. We do a cookie swap every year. We had a staff adjective day where teachers dressed up as an adjective, and you had to figure out who we were. We did the door decorations. We actually had a culture connection come in for the first time in 3 years. And he was, I think he grew up around here, Jesse Green. So he did an assembly for us. I feel like we're creating a fun place to be. And if we look at our social emotional well-being for students, we also have to look at it for our staff. Do they want to come to school every day? Our keynote speaker, Todd Nesloni, did a phenomenal job at bringing that out with staff and did the 2 breakout sessions he has. I have a list of takeaways that I've already started with our group. So that's Miller.
What does PLC stand for?
Professional Learning Community.
Right, okay.
So it's when grade levels meet as a grade level team.
Any other questions for Miller School?
So when you say staff objective day and they dressed up, what do you mean? Like, what were they dressed up as?
Oh, they were interesting.
Well, I was upside down, so I had shoes on my hand, and I had my shorts on my head, and my jeans on my top
It was
part.
really confusing for me.
But you had a list of adjectives on a sheet of paper, and teachers were dressed up, and so students got to go around and figure out who was who on the adjective sheet.
That sounds so cool. That's amazing. I wish do we have a video? It would be so much fun.
We have some pictures. So
Look on their Instagram. Look on their Instagram.
That sounds so fun.
Always pictures.
Did you see yourself in the keynote speaker last week?
I'm sorry, say that
Did
again?
you see yourself in the keynote speaker last week?
I have seen him before, and I've tried to use some of his pieces before.
You know, the dressing up, like you are the goat of.
Yeah.
You really are.
You really take like the. No, and this is one ours too because you suckered her into getting the face with the pie. So yeah.
It was nice to hear Todd and Salome talk about how he's an introvert.
Yes.
And how uncomfortable he is, but he still does it. I don't think Mr. Keim is as introverted. I, too, I resonated with that, is that I'm very uncomfortable in that. And when I was an elementary teacher, I had to force myself to wear the Christmas sweaters and everything else, and wear, costumes, because it's uncomfortable for some of us. But I don't think you're uncomfortable, are you?
He wears tights a lot.
That's wonderful. All right, moving on to.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you. Yeah, that was very, very nice. Thank you.
I feel like I don't need to present.
I don't think
so we're done. So in terms of communication, something I remembered about kindergarten, we also take the census and we send letters to everyone on the census. So fill out your census. If you don't, you won't get a letter about kindergarten registration. So we just surveyed parents. We sent it out last week, and we're going to include it in our newsletter this week, just for a survey of what is your preferred social media platform. And Facebook it is, so we'll be starting a Facebook page in addition to our Instagram page, and probably using Twitter more for academic purposes in that piece, because that was pretty low in the survey results. We feel that we've been doing a really good job showcasing just the amazing things that our teachers are doing. Most of our teachers have Instagram pages in classes that their families follow, so they're able to see what it looks like in their students' classrooms. I didn't mention on here, but we are all using Seesaw across the elementary school, and it's really great. We've been trying to have our teachers use it more as a digital portfolio so that families can see how their students are doing in real time. And kids love talking about what they did, so they make little recordings and they're able to send it home too. We just started our preschool registration. On Monday evening, I did a preschool information night, and it was our first go at having in-person and Zoom at the same time. We wanted to see how that would go, and thanks to Dan's handiwork with the iPad, I think that it was successful. I think you viewed it through.
I was zooming in, and it looked great from my angle.
So what we wanted to do is we realized that some families are able to come in and others aren't, and then we're able to record that as well and put it on our website so everyone would have access to it. Our plan is, after the registration closes, to do a survey out, seeing how the process went for them. Social emotional well-being. Placentino is also in year 2 of the PBIS Academy, and we're really proud. We just also finished another tiered fidelity inventory. So a year ago, we were at 25%. So that means they have kind of a checklist of what have you done? Do you have your does everyone know your expectations? Are they posted? If I asked your teachers what the expectations are, if I asked students what they were, and we are at 80% now. So it's a huge jump, and we're really proud of it. We are piloting Swiss. Miller went full-fledged, and all their teachers are doing Swiss. We are piloting it. And what we're finding as well, that it's really helpful for us to look for trends in that, and we're using that in our student assistance teams as well. So there is no pre-K to 2 student culture survey out there anywhere. So our school council is helping us. We're looking at Miller's and looking at how we can bring it down to a pre-K to 2, but also how can we administer it in a way, because the reading is going to be challenging for our preschoolers and possibly our kindergarten students. So how can we help with that? So we're working on that, and we hope to administer it in the spring. We, too, are going to be sending out to families in our staff the Culture and Climate Survey. Something we're really proud of is we've been doing school-wide diversity, equity, inclusion lessons focused around a monthly read out loud. And we have been sending them home to families as well in our newsletters around, here are the questions that we talked about, here are some things that you can talk about with your students. For teaching and learning, we too have been participating in the equity audit. We have 5 educators. I think we have the most educators at Placentino on the math curriculum team. They're very invested in this. Nicole did an amazing job coming to Placentino and Miller and pairing with us for Vision of a Graduate. And when Nicole and I were preparing, we were talking, I said, so how do you talk to students about this? Like, how do you get this information from your students? She's like, oh, well, here's some of the questions that we ask high school students. And then we both had this aha moment at the same time. And I'm like, oh, what if I interview our students? So we interviewed five students. And it was amazing. And we were able to use those videos in our presentation to staff so they could see the connection. And one of the questions we asked was, if you could change anything about the world, what would you change? And I think he was a first grader. He said, well, there's too much litter. And I've already tried this, so I know it's not going to work, but I made a sign that said, stop littering. But then it fell off, and then I littered, right? So his whole piece. But it was just so amazing to watch their thinking. We had another little one, and we also really tried to interview all of our students. So we interviewed students with identified special needs, different cultures and diversity in that piece, because we wanted our teachers to see our vision of a graduate. And this little one, I said, so we're all different, we look different, we might celebrate different holidays, we might eat different food, and he's like, and I said, so what do you think about that? And he said, oh, well, if we're all the same, what would be the sense of that? That's a first grader. So that to me says that we're doing the work, and it's coming, and maybe you'll get to see some of those videos in yours, so that was great too. We are full-fledged into structured literacy at Placentino. Like Mr. Jordan said, we all just wrote our formative evaluations on many of our staff members. And what was really great is that at Placentino, I would say 90% of the teachers, we all adopted the same goal. It's my goal as well. So we've been doing kind of a deep dive of identifying research-based instructional strategies that will support phonics, phonemic awareness, and comprehension. And they showed their data. And they've been watching their data, which is great. This goal is having them kind of use data in a more formative way versus a summative way. And what I mean by that is while they're administering maybe the STAR, the DIBELS, or even just doing a running record, they're able to kind of look at it. And the questions, the reflections that came out in some of these formatives was amazing. So in second grade, they're looking at fluency. And what one teacher said was, so I don't think this measure actually measured my students' fluency. I actually think I need to look at their phonics and their phonics and piece, because that's what's interrupting their fluency. So I dove into that. So that's the real learning that's happening, and it's pretty exciting. And then finally, I think this echoes what everyone else was really talking about. It's been a year of lots of onboarding and offboarding and onboarding staff, and it's something that we're really trying to partner with our central office partners about how to do that, to make sure that our staff members, because they weren't here in October or November, some of the things that that staff learned then, how can we make sure they have that in real time going forward? So that's been a focus for us. And that's it at Placentino.
Questions for Placentino? So I don't know if you have any questions for our central team related to any of these topics before we move on. So our plan, as I mentioned earlier, is that I think this is, I don't know if you did it in the past, but this is the first time since I've been here that we did a mid-year update just showing you our progress thus far, and it's a lot. It's just commendable, the work that is happening. So what we'll try to do at the end of the year is show you what additionally we've accomplished, but then attach it to data and what the data is showing, because that will help us inform our goals for the fall as well.
And I hope that you don't, like, I'm sitting here and I'm feeling guilty about this. I hope you don't feel that we're uninterested or like our lack of questions is not.
Not at all.
I just, we had a really good conversation, about initiatives, but I'm sitting here going, holy heck, what a lot of work, and
it's a lot to digest.
It's a lot of mental, but I appreciate it, and I just feel guilty that we weren't more interactive, but.
No, we don't mind that sometimes.
All right, well, it's according to that clock over there, 9:30. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it was wonderful.
Thank
it
you.
was really wonderful and
Thank
very
you.
well done.
Thank you, everyone. So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask them to leave the room.
Sure.
Get out. You don't have to ask us twice.
So you can get some rest.
See you later. Good night.
Stay healthy.
Good night.
All right, moving on to professional development update.
So let me just pop that up while they're, thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Give me a second.
Sure.
How do I get it to go to present, though?
I really appreciated Mr. Kime's triangle.
Yes, that's very
Because honestly, somebody in my family may or may not have called me out on my negativity today, and I just thought, yeah, that is so true. Like, negativity or about tough things typically are just a small piece of the big picture, and
Correct.
it's so easy to focus on that and not appreciate
the vastness of the other
vast-
things. Yes,
exactly.
agreed.
We have a negative bias.
I think,
Yes,
well,
I
I
do.
think too,
We all do, though. It's not,
I think those of us that are personally, like, I'm very fast-paced. My husband will tell you I'm always going too fast and don't know how to slow down. So I think I have a tendency to focus on what we haven't accomplished sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's so nice when we can actually look back and say, oh, wow, look at what we have accomplished, instead of getting put so much pressure on ourselves all the time.
Agreed.
Okay, well, I'm very excited. I'm sorry to share, and sorry for my voice, but you're going to have to bear with it. So we just got done with last Friday having our full-day PD day, basically run by staff, and it was incredible. We've gotten a lot of very, very positive feedback. This first slide is, I have to tell you, Sarah Kuhn, Tina Cordes, Winnie Carey did an amazing job under Dan McLeod's direction. Really went above and beyond in bringing technology to educate our professionals of the day. So this is the big monitor right out in the hallway, with all the flags, right? So it had the agenda for the day, our logo that was done by Michelle Hastings. You guys did not see it.
Oh, nice.
All presenters have this T-shirt on, along with being recognized as a presenter, and it shares our big idea for the day, which is Spark, Ignite a Spark. And it's talking about sharing professional, authentic, relevant knowledge. So they did an awesome job. There was also a QR code there where you could get to the website and get more information. So it was very user-friendly how you could access everything. Dr. Kuska kicked off our day, and she really set the tone for what we were doing that day, and really getting back to being passionate and sharing our expertise and digging deep into how we can make it exciting for our students. And it's all about the students. So she was able to set that tone for the day.
Right.
And can move on. So Mr. McLeod and I were really happy to introduce our keynote speaker, Todd Neslony. I wish all of you could have been there. Cynthia and Stacy joined us. It was incredible. He's super, super engaging, relevant to everybody, had a story to tell that anybody and everybody could connect to. Really asked us to dig deep and change our attitudes about how we approach teaching, and the energy we bring or lack of energy we bring can impact everybody. He was very engaging. People were laughing and crying. It was really interesting.
Mostly crying.
Yes.
Please from me.
He has authored 5 books. Years and years ago, before I even was associated with Holliston, Principal Kine, Director Jess Beatty, myself, and David Jordan happened to all be at a conference that we heard him present, and I had suggested him and just said he definitely delivered. It's incredible. We will have that taped and up so other people can see it. This I do want you to interact with. Are you in the interacting realm?
I didn't know how to get to it. I just have a
click on
PDF.
it.
Okay. So what I do want to show you, I want to kind of walk you through this. Those 3 ladies, so Sarah Kuhn, Winnie, Carrie, and, oh my gosh, Tina Cordes, built this out. This is incredible. So this, after people register, they have this to refer to. So you have the agenda for the day. Scroll down, please. You had the agenda for the day, and if you click on one of those M or L's, maybe it won't take you there. But if you guys have access to that,
Oh, here it is. Hang on.
there you go. It will show again how we were talking, how all professional development is tied to our arches and our strategic initiatives, and then also the DESE high quality PD initiatives. So everything's tied directly there. Teachers can use this when they go to recert or do their recertification. They can quickly know exactly what they qualified for and what their PDPs all equal. Go back, the original, go, and you scroll down a little bit more. Oh, that's it for that page. Go on to register for sessions, please. So on the top. On the top
sorry.
red, that's all right. And scroll down, please.
Okay, in my Vienna?
No, good, scroll down, just scroll down.
Okay. It's not letting me.
This one they registered, and it is not letting you
It's
scroll.
not letting me. For some reason.
Okay, go to session details. We'll get there. Go to set, yep. So this was showing, if you scroll down, Sarah Q made a very nice map for people who have old eyes here, for all of our staff members who do not work at the high school, right? And we had a very
It's on the website. 'Cause
user-friendly, yeah, we have a very user-friendly path, though. You guys can see we just utilized this floor of the high school. So it's really easy for people to get around and understand. If you scroll down.
Even me when I was trying to pop into different sessions.
Yes. You scroll down. These are our sessions and our presenters and what their topics were. The presenters got to choose what their topics were and had a description. So that was all done by them. The curriculum coordinators and myself and curriculum workers figured out all of those, how it ties to the strategic initiatives. So it's quite exciting. You can see the incredible work that went into this. And then we had Wi-Fi information. If you go back, oh, I'm sorry, keep on scrolling down. And then this has the resources for each session. You just click on one of those. You scroll down, it has all the resources. That was Todd Neslony, but keep on going down. From the different presentations. So staff members are able to go back and access that information. And if you didn't have a chance to go, you would click on one, like if you click on that, just click on Jess's. Just click on it. And then you can just keep on going to the next one. But they have their digital resources. So if you thought, oh, this looked really interesting and you couldn't get to that one also, you can still access the materials and connect with your colleague and find out what's going on. You can go back to the presentation
It's the
again.
Google Slides of things, is that what you're talking about?
No, the Canva.
Oh, okay.
Go back to
Where do you want to go?
the Canva. No, you're in the,
Oh, to the
yeah,
presentation.
to the presentation. No. Yes, here we go. So then Tina, Winnie, and Sarah produced this paper copy of a Schedule 2. So not only did people register, but you had a paper copy. You can keep that for your records, for your professional development points. You could get along easily. This is a picture of all the presenters were there before Todd spoke. Incredible group of people, really excited. Dan and I were able to go around. We had drawings for the presenters today, and we went around delivering gifts. It was so much fun, and they said how much fun they had and what a really nice event it was. We even had a Yeti cooler was the top drawing. So pictures
All
from
donations.
that. All donations from our vendors, all donations.
They did an incredible amount of work. I didn't even know about all these donations until I watched them picking the lottery winners.
And Mr. Boudet kept us honest.
I
Did it
ran
random.
the lottery because I have experience running lotteries, so
Yes. So he kept us honest.
What did you win, Keith?
nothing, absolutely nothing.
All the
Not happy about
administrators
it.
were not even eligible.
I know. I was
So, yeah.
I was
Yeah.
He won the cooler, but
Yeah,
It was a
right?
nice, I mean, it has the company vendor name on it, but it's a nice Yeti.
Yeah, it's really, really nice. Pictures to share. These were different, just people presenting. I just wanted to see you guys to see different things going on. Then you can just go back up. Jerry Al, during the day, that green picture there, he was doing professional development for all the counselors, trauma, for training for the nurses, the counselors, school counselors, adjustment counselors, psychologists, OT, all of that, which they really enjoyed too. So that was over at Rams when we had this going on. But you can see a wide variety. That was just a really small sampling of people, and they were having a lot of fun, learning from their colleagues. Todd Neslony did do 2 breakout sessions in addition to the keynote. He's just incredible. Like Principal Keim said, people walked away with a lot of very practical ideas that you could institute that very next day. And then this was the amazing tech team that made all the work happen and made it look so incredibly easy, and I know it wasn't. And they spent so much time building the website and the platform. Sarah, Tina, and Winnie were the main 3 that worked on that. Incredible amount of work and really modeled what a team can do. Allie was more on the curriculum end working with us. And then we had a curriculum team, if you can scroll down. Jenny at Placentino, Ilsa at Miller, Casey at Rams, and then our 3 district curriculum coordinators, James, Ida, and Joe. So everybody really worked hard on this. It's an amazing event. We will definitely do it again next year. I really think that we'll get more people to present after they saw all of the wonderful prizes we have.
However, I think the fact that Joni came down sick over the weekend is probably showing you how much time and energy went into this, so we need to help her so that she doesn't do that to herself.
Yeah.
But it was great, it really
Yeah.
was,
It was an amazing day.
with the entire team. Okay.
All right, do we have questions, anything? All right, so moving on to policy, we have nothing on policy. So central office administrators update. Superintendent.
Yes, just a couple of quick things. Yesterday, we had the Safe Routes to Schools walks at Miller and Placentino, and I did not make it to Miller because I found out there was more snow in my area than I realized when I was getting up, and didn't want to push it and get there dangerously. But I did attend the Placentino walk. It was a very small group, so we've talked about maybe we'll stick to fall and spring when it's a little bit warmer. But it's still, it was a very enriching and exciting group that they had a lot of energy along the way. And I'm trying to think, we've shared so many things already, so I don't think there's anything else pertinent, but I'll be giving some more updates later in the week. Obviously, you all got my communication that we've appointed as of July 1st. Jess Beatty will be our permanent Student Services Director, so we're really excited to welcome her permanently to our team.
Absolutely, that's awesome.
Joni?
All right,
Yes, I have quite a few just really short announcements. Just to let you know, the curriculum review work that's being done, February 7th, we're going to be having a half-day that we're going to be releasing secondary ELA teachers to continue our curriculum review work. February 15th is our next math curriculum review meeting. We do have a draft vision, so we're well on our way. Wellness continues to be worked on. World language, we had a visit. Ida Pappas worked hard. Dr. Kuska was able to visit. We had a new French consulate in Boston that is really trying to get their feet wet and kind of do a consortium, for lack of a better word, or a partnership between all the districts in the states that have French immersion programs. So be looking out for more information coming on what we will be doing with our other partners in the state on that.
Yeah, and I did get to talk with, I got to meet the group that came, and I also got to talk to the staff that were part of the visits on our end when they were leaving the building, and they were very excited about this opportunity to be able to showcase the wonderful things we're doing with our program here. So that was great.
So they were able to go around to Placentino classrooms and Miller classrooms. Yes, Don?
And I know we're kind of few, the French immersion programs within the state, and I think Milton also has one.
So Milton and now Brockton schools.
Oh,
Yes.
interesting.
And then there are some districts now that have Spanish and Portuguese, but I don't know if it's a full immersion or, I know framing, and you probably know more than
Yeah, they
I do.
have a school that's entirely in Spanish,
Yeah.
an entire
So-
school, K to 6, K-5.
But we are a little unique
Oh,
in this
it is.
area
In
with only
Framingham?
3 in the state, so.
So we will be doing this, person is really trying to build a lot of opportunities
Spanish.
for the 3 districts to partner together on accessing resources and just kind of sharing best practices with each other. So I'll keep you up to date on that. February 8th is our next half-day professional development day. So after that, I'll be letting you know. Tiered focus monitoring interviews are coming up hot and heavy here. February 13th, I am running the English learner interviews. 8 students were randomly selected. Those 8 students' parents received a survey, and then they will be working on doing Zoom interviews with tutors, teachers, gen ed teachers, and myself. On February 15th, Jess is leading the tiered focus monitoring on special ed and civil rights. February 15th are interviews for that. Later in February, as Dr. Kuska said, we will be publishing our beginning of standards by month documents and stage 1 documents. Really excited to share that with you. Dr. Kuska mentioned this, but I just want to let you guys know, we did totally revamp the New Teacher Institute. Really central admin is collectively running that together. Our 8th one of this year is on February 9th, so coming up. And I also did mentor training that has not happened for a while. The last thing I wanted to mention, and I'll be getting information out about this, Ida Pappas, myself, and Jerry L. have been working hard with Dusty Safe and Supportive Schools, Landon Callahan, and we will be offering on February 15th a virtual opportunity for parents, pre-K through 12 plus. Desi will be facilitating it. We will be co-hosting it, myself, Ida, and Jerry L. Really on what Holliston is doing in curriculum and in general, how to make students feel more safe and welcome here in our district.
And I think it will help clarify what we're not doing, because we know people.
Correct.
There are a lot of, there's a lot of misinformation about what we are teaching and what we're not. We're teaching the state standards. We're not teaching some of the things that people think we're teaching.
That's
so.
right. So please put it on your calendars.
I just want to say publicly again, thank you so much for all of your work. Obviously, Dan is gone.
Yes.
But also many, many educators that participated because they put a lot of work in behind the scenes between our tech staff, but all of the presenters. And I was not only touched by Todd's presentation, but then some of the presentations of some of our staff that were able to be vulnerable and tell their stories. It was just nice to see our staff feel safe to do that. That tells me that we're doing something right if they feel safe to tell their stories behind the scenes.
So we had 64 different staff members presenting.
Wow.
So, for over 73 sessions. So.
Keith?
All right, so Keith.
Just one quick update relating to grants as a policy. The policy states that we're supposed to alert you at grants. Some of you who are on the committee and others who weren't even on the committee probably remember when we got a grant to do the cameras, the exterior cameras. We received $60,000, which was the maximum amount for that project. We partnered with the town. We got some capital money and we did the exterior cameras. As you also know, we also have done, through a capital request with the town, some interior cameras as well. And being honest with you, they're utilized all the time. The principals have really enjoyed having that luxury.
I was going to say.
Not enjoy, but they're finding it helpful. They're finding it helpful.
When they're telling me that they enjoy having them, okay? You were part of those conversations.
Pull the fire alarm ever again.
The officer.
I'm sorry?
You'll never not know who pulled the fire alarm ever again.
There's other ways of finding that out too. The Office of Grants and Research is having another safety grant period again. While we've received a previous grant from them, that doesn't make us ineligible. We just won't receive priority. But I'm planning on applying for that. I'd like to apply for that again, with the target of increasing our camera presence inside at all 4 schools. And I have 2 other projects that potentially about creating secure access for students who can't handle a door themselves. So that, again, to have a button situation that isn't locked down creates a gap in security. I actually met with one of our vendors this week about that, and he has a solution where it would be a secured button situation. So, again, whether we get it or not, I'm not sure. We'd be eligible for up to about $150,000, $50,000 per building. They say per school, but obviously we only have 3 buildings, so it's 3 schools. I'm planning on going forward with that, and we'll see what we get.
And I will say, now that we've rolled them out at the upper levels, we're also, as pre-K 2 has been asking, are we going to get some too? Because there are still things that students bolting, a visitor that forgets to stop at the office, where did they go? It doesn't mean they're a threat, but we still want to locate them because someone could be confused when a stranger's walking in the building and they bypass the office, and that does happen. So I think it is a good time to see if we can get, just in the hallways like we've done at the middle school and high school at Miller and
It just happened today. Mr. McLeod escorted a visitor down that did not have a badge. So.
Right. So there's a lot of reasons, preventative-wise, to have them in the building.
But generally, these will be passive surveillance.
Yes.
Correct?
We don't have persons look at. The only time we would look
Wanted
at.
to clarify.
Absolutely. We don't have staff designated, so it's really if there's a situation where we need to find a visitor that wandered, or even if after hours you have a visitor that went into the building that shouldn't have been, and things like that, or potentially if there's destruction after hours or a bolter, like I said, and you want to see what hallway they went down and keep the children safe. So it's really about providing that safe environment. And the kids really, the little ones don't even know they're there. The older ones do.
Okay, so Pete?
That's it.
Okay, all right. So we move on to personnel, stipends, robotics, Lego.
So I think it was the last meeting, I gave you a list, or maybe it was 2 meetings ago, we talked about the stipends. And this is an interesting process here in Holliston. I'm not used to this process, so I had to familiarize myself with it because during COVID, we weren't getting a lot of requests for new clubs. So then we got an onslaught of new clubs, and it's great that kids will come to a person in the school or the principal and say, why don't we have a club for this? We'd like to have that. And if there's someone willing to take on the pilot with the students, the pilot will go forward. The person puts a proposal in place to the principal. Principal is then supposed to vet the process with them. and they will do the pilot, and then they would recommend to me whether or not they think this is something that they would want the pilot to continue because it's worthwhile hitting a number of kids. And at that time, I'm supposed to come back to you and say, we'd like to move forward to negotiate the stipends for these new clubs. As you know, I know there were a lot of questions last time about the number of them, and if we were getting them so late in the budget process, that too is a concern of mine. So we really, we've had some conversation about trying to really make sure that we're more strategic and timely about how we communicate those. So I put together a template to kind of show what the process is, but then also we're kind of putting together some timelines for when these things need to be submitted, because if I find out in May that we have 5 new clubs that they're recommending, it gives me time to negotiate them, it gives me time to post them, but that also gives me time to go through all the clubs that are going to be offered, because if we're putting another $25,000, for example, in clubs that year, then what are we eliminating? I can't just keep adding. So Keith has also talked about the fact that stipends every year are supposed to be reviewed by school committee as part of our financial audit.
That's not just activities for clubs. Not
Or
like
just the clubs.
not like
Sorry,
the
yes.
farm
Club
stipends,
stipends, yeah. For each year, you're supposed to approve what we're doing. So our plan is to make sure that we're getting any new factors negotiated, brought back to you for this at the end of the year. We'll say, okay, now we have this is the number of money we can afford. We're recommending this, and then you would tell us if that's how you want us to go forward. Or you might say, we think you should be offering more than that, go ahead. I mean, that's part of the budget process as well, but we need to have that information timely so that we can do so. So recently, we were approached with, well, not recently, both the robotics and the Lego were still in the process, but we hadn't had time to sit down with the union to discuss them yet. Robotics is a program that's been in existence, so it was really about, there's also a part in the contract where we can review them periodically, so we're asked to review it. So for that stipend, we're preliminarily adjusting that stipend with your approval to go forward from, what is it? It was 7.6 to 10.4 or something like that. It might have been 7.4 to 10.4, so it is a slight increase, but we had a lot of data to support the amount of hours. Robotics happens to be a club that has a lot of hours. These students are in the building a lot, and many of these students, it is their sole club because they're so entrenched in it, and it's on weekends and Fridays and so forth.
What do those numbers mean, though? 7.6, is that a percentage? Is that hours? Is that...
Every time we go up a factor, it's about $297, right, Keith?
Yes, the way that within, in the contract, in Appendix A in the contract, you'll see all the clubs. And there's a formulaic mechanism to go through, number of students, number of evening events, all sorts of things that lead to a...
You get this time and responsibility gives you a number,
Exactly.
and the number is...
And then factored by $297.80.
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
Okay.
So we feel that it's warranted to move forward with the robotics stipend. The Lego stipend, we have not finalized, but before I do negotiate those factors, I wanted to, just because we've had this conversation in the past, it would be a new club. It's not a very expensive club. It's really more, I feel it's like more of a social emotional learning because it's giving kids opportunities to just sit and build with Legos together after school in a structured environment with an adult presence. So
We're not buying the Legos, right?
I would assume we have the Legos already.
I don't know.
That's expensive.
I don't actually know.
I have not been approached to fund those, so I don't have the answer to that, but I can find out before, we implement it.
I could
They're so
donate
expensive.
bins and bins.
Also, yeah, but we could, I was just thinking we could ask for donations.
Because Lego
they could ask
robotics is a different thing.
No, it's two different things.
Two different, right.
Right.
So,
it's
but is
different.
You're
Lego
right.
different than
This-
Lego robotics?
Yes.
Yes.
I know, they're next to each other.
No, I know, but there's
Bricks.
also Lego
Correct.
robotics.
This is
Lego
Lego
robotics is much
Bricks.
more
All right.
robust,
Yeah.
yes. This is more of a, just an
Those are
opportunity
very
for students to
expensive,
take.
too.
Yes, they are.
Are these
Yes.
both at the high school?
I'm sorry?
Are these both at the high school?
No, the Lego
Is that
is for the middle school and robotics for the
Yeah,
high
actually,
school.
that makes more sense because that's the age group I would think that Lego would be very useful.
5.8 for robotics, and it
More.
went to 10.4. Is that,
What?
5.8 more?
5.8 more over what it was. The time and responsibility was 4.6, and the proposal is for 10.4.
Is there a lot of interest for Lego?
We don't have all the details yet.
Yeah, we're just voting on
Robotics. Yeah, what we're trying to do is get a better handle, because this is part of this factoring gets complex, because to really know how many students are attending, you have to look at it every year.
Right.
But to go through every single club every year is not realistic. I mean, we've spent hours, Keith and I, just meeting on the clubs that I brought forward.
The 3 clubs.
No, there were more than 3. 5.
I'm just going to say, I feel like, again, should be something we're doing mid-year, and like are we going to have one of these come up like every meeting now?
No,
Every month or something?
because I've already said I can't.
No, 'cause it's just
I received some clubs in December, and I just said I can't, because like the robotics was on a list that we received last
Right.
June, but it's been so many times that we've met that we haven't been able to get to it.
Yeah.
But, no, that
I
is
feel like
not.
it needs to be like, we do this on an annual basis.
Which is
The
why we're
formula
gonna go
needs to be
to-
reworked, obviously.
The principals, my expectation would be that once the clubs open for the year in October, if there's any new proposals, so they can start piloting then, and then by
Right.
March, it's being either recommended to move forward or not, and then I would come to you and say, are you okay with me moving forward? Now,
Right.
even if we negotiate factors, it doesn't mean it's happening that year,
Yeah.
but you sort of, if it's a new club, it's sort of suggesting that it is, right?
Right.
So then I would have to make sure that we do our due diligence with each principal and say, okay, this is what your building has for funding.
Yeah.
What would you like to say?
It's the same pie.
And that's the hard part, like,
Yeah.
if initially there were 50 kids in a class of an enrichment opportunity, and, as time goes on, it starts to dissipate, maybe we're down to 10, maybe we can't offer that anymore, but I don't think that's been part of the discussion for a long time, it
Right.
just seemed to be added on, but I do think it's a time that we might need to go through and see what ones aren't really as well-attended.
Yeah.
We can't offer it all.
We have to
We just can't.
sunset
think
some of
there's-
those programs that aren't being used.
But I also think there's different levels of clubs. So for example, robotics, DI doesn't count because it falls under the PTO umbrella, but robotics, even DECA, I feel like those are 2 clubs that are
A different level.
a different level because they involve travel, competitions
Yeah.
Definitely.
versus Beautiful Minds campaigns or SAD or any
whatever, yeah.
others.
Yeah, some are more
very
rigorous and
different.
more academic focused, even though they are after school, and others are more social, emotional well-being,
Right.
and a place for children to go,
And don't shoot the daggers. However,
I didn't bring any
I
today.
do, you're gonna, I almost think then there's a different level of maybe activity fee, like, I know it's an equity issue, but at the same time, if you're gonna participate in DECA, you know that there's potential that you're going to states. There's potential that you're going to nationals. Those are big expenses. Same thing like DI. Most families who have their kids participate in those know that there's some expenses that are gonna come down. Because quite honestly, I feel like we are getting bombarded. We are getting bombarded with requests for the PTO to help fund some of these trips. So we just have
Yeah.
to, we gotta think about this
And
more. We
but-
really,
we do not fund students going to states or nationals through through fees. That is, they do have to fundraise for that. That is not part of the fee process. So they do fundraise for that. I didn't know that they were going to PTO. I thought it was fundraising outside, so it's something we could talk about further, but that is part of the program, that they have to go to these and stay overnight. I mean, my daughter is a DECA advisor in another district, so she has gone 3 or 4 nights this year out of, left my grandson with his father, which is fine, but it is a big,
It would be an
it's a big
equity issue, though.
it is an equity issue.
It's
yes.
not-
I understand that, but we have to have that conversation, right? Because it is an equity issue. Same thing with sports. My kid's paying $225 to play a sport that is a boatload of money versus another student or my other kid who might be doing another sport that there's no way near the same amount. So we need to have honest conversations about these. And yes, I know it's an equity issue, so we need to talk about it and not be afraid to have that conversation. I shouldn't have to be afraid to say, my kid who's playing a sport that's costing a boatload of money should probably pay a little bit more to participate in that. Or
the state should pay, you know, or the,
Or that's
we
part
pay
of
more,
free
like.
appropriate education.
This is what I'm
and that
saying, like.
activity and sports
I
are part
hear
of that,
you,
just like
and
everybody
I
else
would
does.
say, from an equity audit perspective, they would tell us that you need to make sure that all children have access to these, so I don't know
So
what.
what
the-
happens if a child, like for example, comes from a family that is not as, like, you know, can't afford it? They can't play? Like, what happens to them then?
They can get a waiver, right?
That runs through the principal's office.
Sure, I do think, again, we've talked about this before, this was part of my full-day case spiel 2 years ago, was, do I know for sure that all families know that they can ask for help? Or does their culture allow them to let themselves ask for help? So, you know, there's so many layers to this.
Whether or not a waiver is
waiver
available is one thing.
Will they ask
You
for
know,
it? They don't.
actually, that's a very good point, Susan. Yeah, culturally also, there would be families that would never ask for help, even if they wanted it.
And then the door might have
agree
been
with
closed
that.
for that student, we would never know,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
So it's a
absolutely.
tough
I
one, but
agree with
you know my lens, I'm about equity as much as possible, so.
Okay, so, yeah, that's a great
So,
point.
I
So do we
may,
have to vote for this?
I think we voted last time to move forward with
Yes.
the negotiating the factors, yes.
So do we vote?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right.
I don't know if you want to take them separately, or?
You have the data on the increased number of kids and the increased number of hours. Is your recommendation that we should make this increase? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the kid part's a little harder, because we know what's enrolled, but that's not, so it's a little tricky, and that's why this formula is very tricky.
When you say enrolled, does that mean they paid an activity fee?
Well, there's one activity fee a year, so a student theoretically could enroll in 7 clubs that have paid once.
Okay.
So it doesn't mean they paid for that club, so they can enroll but never attend, you know, so that's the harder part. Right, Keith, I think that's. I don't
Correct,
know.
that's absolutely
Is
correct.
that a procedure part that we could change in the future? Like we would like to see attendance records, and that's part of having the stipend?
I think that might be possible. I mean, also from a safety perspective, to know who's in the building, because I also worry about parents thinking their child's here every day because they signed up and they might not, you know, so, yes, it might be helpful to us, because it will give us real information on who's in the building for safety reasons.
I would make a motion for the increase.
Okay, so can you just, like, you know, specify what we are voting for, just to make sure that everybody
Can
understands
you
what we
guys
are.
just again relay the rate, the requested rate increase?
Keith, 4.6 to 10.
The current is 4.6, and we're going up to 10.4 based on the admin proposal. Are we voting for the proposed, or are we voting for the admin?
Are you voting
Can
to
you
agree
define
that,
it again?
that I can negotiate it? I mean, even though we already have, I haven't finalized it or signed off until your approval, so you're just approving me to move forward with it.
I'm making a motion for the high school robotics club for the stipend to be increased from the 4.6 level to the, is it
10.4.
10.4.
Second.
So, moved by Ms. Naborski and seconded by? Cynthia. All in, okay, I have to roll call vote, right?
Yes.
So, Ms. Naborski?
Yes.
Ms. Listenwick?
Yes.
I did say it right,
V,
right?
put a V in there.
No.
Yeah.
Listevnik.
Listevnik, thank you. Ms. Koshin?
Yes.
Ms. Raffi?
Yes.
Ms. Migalo?
Yes.
Ms. Dr. Savard?
Yes.
Ms. Gupta? Yes.
And then if you could just, if you are approving me to move forward to negotiate the factors for Lego, I would just need you to agree to that as well.
I move to move forward with the proposed Lego after-school program activity.
Seconded by Lisa.
So, roll call. So moved by Cynthia, seconded by Lisa, and roll call vote. Ms. Naborski?
Yes.
Ms. Listevinik?
Yes.
Ms. Koshin?
Yes.
Ms. Raffi?
Yes.
Ms. Bigelow?
Yes.
Dr. Savard?
Yes.
Ms. Gupta? So moved and passed.
Mr. Rute, you do know that every time you're doing that, it's on the screen.
Oh, sorry. Keeping people attuned to what's next.
Okay, all right. So, reports come from subcommittee. Communications?
Yeah, we haven't rescheduled yet. Sorry, the week that I was out was a week where I had a communications subcommittee meeting scheduled, a budget subcommittee meeting scheduled, and a superintendent's evaluation subcommittee meeting scheduled. So, still catching up, but we will schedule something hopefully next week.
And I think our intention is before February break to get something out just outlining office hour availability so that the community knows that, and some really, like a summary of where we are in the budget process with a heads up of when
So it'll be
town meeting.
short newsletter.
So yes, we will have something.
And I know you're usually good, Lisa, about emailing Dan and I, but sometimes it gets buried. So for timeliness, if you ever don't get a response in a timely manner, you're trying to get it out the next day, just text me and I can make sure that happens as well.
That's it for communications.
Policy.
Our next meeting is this Monday, February 6th at 7:30 in Central.
Budget.
And budget, we had a meeting this past Wednesday. We went over briefly the priority needs that were going to be presented here. Talked a little bit about SOI and facilities assessment. Our next meeting is Wednesday, February 15th at 11 a.m.
All right, superintendent's evaluation.
Yeah, so we just had a meeting and we formulated the calendar for the rest of the year, what we're going to do when, and I will send out an email to you guys giving you an update. I had some other action steps too. There's a couple other things I have to follow up on.
School start times.
We are in the process of reaching out to the principals and doing the next sort of recon wave. We do not have another meeting scheduled right now, but we will.
Can I just suggest, because I don't want to send you your subcommittee an email, but can you, in your next meeting, talk about the high school parking lot and the opportunities that potentially are there in terms of reconfiguring how people come into the parking lot, get out of the parking lot? I just think that is definitely contributing to the congestion cluster that potentially is affecting buses getting out of the high school parking lot in a timely fashion.
Sure.
And I vote you sign off and go to bed.
True, right? She's like, you sound.
Your voice is pitiful.
I know.
I've been coughing for like 3 days, so there's no like.
Go to bed.
This is too interesting.
It's fascinating.
Wow.
All right, new business. Newsletter?
Next time.
Okay. All right, school calendar.
So we made, I had given you a preliminary draft, and then we had, at the last meeting, but we didn't discuss the school calendar. And then the principals gave us some feedback about a couple of dates, so we've tweaked that. So this is the most current draft.
Everybody has like an access to the calendar. Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, Lisa DeLuzio has done a nice updated template, which we asked her to do a full year schedule, and it's small, but it's clean looking and easier to.
So I shared with Susan and Catherine earlier today. We all received an email from an elementary educator. So I thought maybe this is something we either whiteboard or have a document. I didn't share it with everyone else because I didn't want to be accused of breaking open meeting law. But Susan, can you pull it up? Because I actually don't have internet access, or Keith. So I just sort of through some of the comments. It's not exhaustive of her email, but I think there are some issues that we do need to talk about, and she offered some possible solutions. this topic, I think I'd rather have a root canal than have to talk about this topic, quite honestly, because I just think it's.
Don't want that.
I think there's too many, it really is that 10,000 piece.
You got yelled at Casey's
Yes,
one
I
night.
did. I was accused of being a racist. So I think this is the 10,000 piece 3D puzzle that people are trying to put together in the dark, and there's too many opinions, whatnot. So I just wanted to throw up there. She really was coming at it more from an elementary level. These are all things that we've talked about in the past. So I just threw it up there so that we have it documented. And
Can you share this with me too, please?
I can do that, yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, Joni, I'm sorry, I thought I did, but
Oh, you're on it.
oh,
Oh,
I did.
There are a lot of good things.
oh, okay, sorry. If I haven't looked at all my
Yours came
emails
in, yeah,
today.
yours came in.
Sorry.
Well,
Yeah.
Are we opening the floor to questions or complaints? I just was noticing some couple things. Along the same lines of what Stacy was saying, but different. Some of our color coding of just saying like holiday versus school closed. So I think that having it all red when school is closed, but a holiday should be like a different color, because we have other holidays that may not be in the school calendar in terms of on a school day, but we still acknowledge them, or right?
I see.
Observed. So they're just like for example.
Diwali would be.
Yeah, or we should still highlight them anyway, and then also even just like in February vacation, for example.
So isn't Rosh Hashanah on September?
So this year, it was.
This year it's not on.
It falls on a Sunday.
Right.
Same as Diwali.
Okay, yeah.
So it's
yeah.
celebrated on a Sunday, the main day, so that's why so that actually is helpful as far as the
Right.
calendar, because there are less
Holidays,
less of these
correct.
concerns for this person to
Yeah.
reflect on, but also it would allow us to, with no snow days, our last day would be
17th?
the 17th.
So there's a
Right.
typo here. It says 181 days for students. Oh, no, never mind.
No,
It's
that's
not,
right.
because that includes PD.
Could I just
doesn't
ask
include
about
The 185?
185, yes.
Yes.
The 181 is for students.
So, so my question for the November 15th PD, why are we not clubbing it with the Thanksgiving holiday? I know there are like 5 Wednesdays, but Thanksgiving being the most traveled holiday, I think that might actually make more sense, because it's just easier for parents to club.
So if you look, I actually am making the suggestion that on the 22nd, the day before Thanksgiving, would be a full day off.
Why?
Because currently it's been a half day
And nobody's here.
and a half day for staff and students. It's not a half day technically for staff, but they leave after a half day. And a lot of people take it off for that reason. So families.
But it's a day we can get out earlier in June by having that day.
No. Well, it is, but this year, because of Rosh Hashanah and Diwali, it's not as impactful. Like this year, it would have been the 19th, I think, would have been our last day of school.
But that's still, like, I mean, it's just a week earlier, so why not have the 27th or the 21st as the PD day? I'm just kind of.
I disagree with that,
Yeah,
only
it's
because
a tough-
people have to prepare for the PD day, and that
Yeah,
stinks
before a
that
holiday?
they- over
No.
a holiday.
So if we were doing that, we would make a half day on the 22nd and make that a half day PD, and I don't think that would go over very well.
And our November PD is going to be what our January PD just was. So we're going to be looking at our teachers to be teaching these classes. So I think that's a big ask if you're asking them to do that on the week of Thanksgiving.
And part of it is we're trying to not break up 2 days in the same week, so you'd have
Right.
the 8th off and the 10th off, because the 10th is Veterans Day, so
I just think that's a total waste to have a day off on the 22nd. I don't know. It's
Well,
like
right
the
now-
pep rally and like, I don't know. I'm about to say something I hate saying, which is that's the way we've always done it. I don't like that argument at all, but I feel like it's always the way schools do things is
with
to have
4
to have
half
that.
days and all the conference and everything, time on learning is quite impacted, so that half day is only a half day instruction. And then we have a lot of kids not being there at all. So then it's not a day of, I mean, yes, on paper it is, but is it really?
So what about 27th, like instead of 15th, if we did it on 27th instead of breaking a week? Because then we are having a holiday almost every week in November.
But then you're asking teachers to do
prepare
that
during their holiday.
presentation during the holiday, and that's,
Yeah, but there's, I mean,
alternatively-
is preparing a PD presentation harder than teaching?
But you're also looking, see,
Yeah, because exactly, like
You still have to prepare to
27th, you are
teach.
coming back
Oh, I
to
do know.
teach.
we're not going to have anybody volunteer to teach.
but you're all, I mean, talking about interruptions for students, you'd be off either a half day the 22nd, but then 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th. The time on learning, big disruptions there, and then Christmas is around the corner.
Because, I mean, the way, I mean, I could be wrong, but 21st is a full teaching day. If you make it into a PD day, they are preparing ahead. It's not like they're going to prepare during the holidays. I don't know.
So you want one day of
Then
instruction?
there's one day of instruction for
Kids
the
won't
kids.
come.
It's
No
no
point.
point,
Yeah.
kids won't come, they'll take that week off. You can't have a
Or one day
one-day
of the
week.
Got it, okay, all right.
I don't even want to have a two-day week, I'd rather have a 2.5
What
day
about
week.
the
even.
6th?
Yeah,
In
you are-
October, doing the full day on the 6th for the, for that long weekend, before Indigenous Peoples' Day?
And I think we've done that in the past.
We have.
And it can be very helpful.
That's going to mess us up, though, because the intent is we want our teachers to go to Mass Q conference, because we're asking them to come back and teach some things they've learned from that. And that does not happen by that date.
When does Mass Q happen?
Let me try to look it up for next year. I do not know.
I think it might be the week of the 15th, but I'm
So
not
while
sure.
you're looking that up, why isn't February 7th the PD day where teachers do workshops?
Because we're talking weather. So we
But we just
had,
had it like yesterday.
And they asked for it to be early in the year.
correct. Yeah.
So
they
we're
said-
trying to take a lot of feedback over
Right,
to this.
We're looking at teacher feedback. That's why we're making
Dawn.
adjustments.
Just, I want to address January. I'm really concerned about an early release day on January 24th. For example, this year we had finals, I think on the 21st and 22nd, or 22nd and 23rd. All you need is one day out of school before the end of January, and you will have finals on the same day as a PD day, right? So what would you do then?
Well, they're half-day days anyway, but,
Right, but,
what I mean
but
is,
they're longer than the half-day. Like, at a half-day, they get out at, what, 11:10, but finals gets out at noon, or 11:40, or something like that. So it could impact it. Is it something we could look into?
I'll certainly ask that question. We did have the high school principal did come back to us on there was another date that she
Right.
told us about. I think it was the May
She didn't
date.
say anything about that date,
But
though.
we'll double check
Are
on that.
finals usually on Thursday and Friday? No. No. I mean, it's usually half, like wherever you are halfway through the year. So no, it's not.
So these are all things
On
I'll
a Friday or a
bring
Monday.
back to the principals, but right now, again, this is a draft, not looking for a vote.
Mass Q, I just looked it up, next year is October 18th and 19th. So you need people, you would need to do that date after that.
So they attend it and then they do it, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
okay.
Do we know when elementary
Right.
conferences
What about,
are?
yeah.
Yes.
Because if they're November, then
Then
that's
there's already
just
a
so
holiday
much in
here.
November.
No, it's
What about the
December.
13th instead of doing a
They're
midweek?
blue.
So we were asked not to do any PD days in December because of the
Okay,
conferences.
good. I think
So
that's
we,
good.
that was more feedback we got, and then
Yes.
we adopted.
And we're
We
trying
are
to avoid
listening,
the April and
teachers.
February.
Fill out your PD form.
What about, instead of doing November 15th, doing the 13th, kind of dovetailing with the Veterans Day holiday, and doing it on the 13th instead? No?
I mean, I would
Feedback has
definitely,
been from principals that Mondays and Fridays have been challenging.
Okay. Okay. I won't ask about that. Okay, but globally, we've gotten, over the years, parents, teachers especially, kids, have complained about the fact that we get out so late in June and it is very hot, just like you mentioned, Stacey. And I'm wondering whether we can do sort of a revamp of when we do our PD, alternatively, something else, but if we did our PD and did maybe some PD before the school year starts. So they do, more targeted, multi-day, targeted PD 2 days before school starts, or 3 days before school starts, and get some of that PD out of the way, and then do a couple of full-day PDs throughout the rest of the year, but nothing in May. I don't know why I was seeing like a PD in May. I feel like that's, I don't know how relevant it is to do something that late in the year, but I just feel like whatever way that we can get more of those days ahead of time so that we're not going as far into June.
So our first day right now would be the August 28th that you propose, and that we should go back further than August 28th?
Yeah, I would be, well, not for the students, but for the teachers,
That's
yes.
so terrible for teachers, though. That's like really bad for teachers, don't you think?
Is it better, though, to have a May 8th half-day PD?
That's,
So, but asking the teachers to end their summer on like August 23rd instead of August 28th
it's a big difference.
is a big ask for teachers. It's a big.
But if they're getting out on June 10th or 12th, do you know what I'm saying? Like, if we're getting out that much earlier, if we're able to do that by cobbling together.
Perhaps.
something.
That's
I'll be
not a
honest with you,
decision I'd feel comfortable voting on without a lot.
Oh, we're not voting, I'm just talking.
But can I bring up some
Yeah.
other concerns? We have, over the summer, we have extended school year, and we have to get the buildings up and ready. To get the buildings empty, because when does extended day go to? I'm not even sure.
The first 5 weeks is extended school year, and
And then-
extended days, and
And then extended day goes longer, and
Another week
then
after.
we have some cleaning to do. So I would not want to put that much, because we would have to have everything done, and teachers would have to have their rooms ready then before that day, or that day, because the training's happening. It's putting a lot of
It's
pressure.
worth asking, though. It's good creative thinking, Cynthia. It almost is worth asking if that is a possibility or if teachers would go for that. So you're saying in place of the full-day PDs throughout the year.
Yes.
And that way,
Yeah. I'm not saying all of them, I'm saying some of them. Like, what if we did 2, we have 4 full-day PDs we have to get through the year.
3.
And we also, sorry?
3, actually. So we have one
3 full
on
days.
3, and then we have all the
1st
half-days.
September.
Right,
But a
half
total
days.
is supposed to be, it's
Yeah.
supposed to total 4 full days of PD.
Yeah, and
5
then
now.
To make 185, right?
Now it's 5.
Okay.
You don't want to do the full day that the teachers present prior to school.
So one of the
No.
things we're trying to avoid is giving them a chance, training, application. So
Yeah,
I
I
would
get
not want to
that.
have 2 together. That's
No, I get that.
And so this past year and the year before, I think, like, for example, we had opening day on the 29th this year, and then the 30th was the full-day PD. Staff felt very uncomfortable with that because they're very distracted trying to get ready for the school year, and that's why we shifted. So we're taking all this feedback and play, and that's why we put it on Friday the 1st, which gives a long weekend for families and, so they're not necessarily ready. Having been a teacher myself, I don't know about you, Amanda, but I know that I was still setting up my classroom as an elementary teacher in the end of the summer, and to ask me to do PD day, and then I can't apply it because school's opening.
Okay.
I guess it depends on the topic.
It does depend on the
guess,
topic.
If
but-
the topic is what are we going to do this year, then it's great. I love I have 2 days of PD, but it's very like beginning of the year based. And so it's awesome. It's super helpful for new teachers. Like, you have some classroom setup time, but it's mostly like you're meeting with your department teams, you're meeting with the teachers that are teaching the same course as you, and you're setting up your stuff. But if you have to have like a random talk about such and such, then you're right. It's like you're not ready for that.
Yeah, and 28th, that's what we do on the 28th, what you're talking about. They have the department meetings, they have setting up their classroom and everything else, but that's not PD, that's the opening day stuff.
That doesn't count as a PD.
It does not.
No.
Because you have to have a product and you have to have new training.
Right.
Do we have attendance data on the half-day PDs?
Yes. I haven't put it all together, but we have had some concerns with PD days.
Right, so maybe have more just full-day PDs instead of half-day PDs?
We did talk to the PD council about that, and it would be less hours then, and they feel that the PD is necessary. But I did tell them, and we're going to meet again, that I'd like to look at next year, because I did propose that, let's just go to 4 full-day PDs and not so many half-days. They gave a lot of reasons why that's not as good for their learning. So I did ask that we would next year look at all of that and look at all the data that you're talking about and reassess it at that time.
So I can have data from this year and data from next year.
I just feel that, middle of the week is very difficult for working parents to, arrange for like childcare.
All the other districts around us have a half day almost every single month.
Yeah.
I did
Half
when
day
my
is
kids.
fine. It's just, it's
That was a
full
nightmare.
day.
Like,
It was a
yeah.
nightmare when I had my kids and I was a
I'm
teacher.
not advocating for it, I'm just saying
No, I'm
that's
just-
something that.
Yeah, how, you know, it's just
I
hard.
think all of it is
Is it
difficult
harder to get
because-
childcare for a full day on a Wednesday than on a Monday and Friday?
I don't know.
Friday actually is.
For me, not necessarily.
I don't know if it matters on that.
Friday, many actually can get out earlier. Many parents can get out earlier on Friday, so that's why Friday works. Wednesdays are like, you know, the middle of the week, they probably have everything, you know, slammed in. They can't get out before 5 o'clock. They have to take a break. They might have had something which is, it's just hard. It's just harder for parents. And that's the only reason why I feel that, you know, clubbing it with a holiday maybe, like, you know, like 27th would be easier. I know I understand what Joni is saying. I'm just trying to figure out that if that would be something that we can give a think about.
The other thing we haven't considered from the parent end is since the pandemic, people's work lives have changed drastically.
Absolutely.
I'm
Some
in a
have, but
household-
that's like office workers, so that's, be careful with equity. Like,
Yeah,
I
some
understand that. What I'm
some
saying
have.
is,
It's actually getting back pretty, like, you know, some of the offices and it's been back, like, except for IT, to be very honest. There are very few offices that give, especially middle of the week. That's why I said that Fridays, even sometimes Mondays, like, you know, you can start late, but middle of the week is hard.
We have to look at both sides, though, because we're trying to listen to the teachers, but we're also trying to listen to the principals. And if you're always doing them on Mondays and Fridays, they don't feel like that's always productive.
They feel they're more burnt out on Fridays and not as
Correct.
focused. Mondays are hard because you're just kind of prepping for the week.
Right.
No,
No matter what scenario I gave you, we're going to find a flaw.
No, it's really hard.
It's
We're
really
not
hard.
voting on this tonight anyway,
No.
right?
Yeah, we
This is
are
our
not.
first look.
There's one more, I don't know, I don't know how the popular opinion about this would be, but I was wondering if February vacation could be something we could
Get
work
rid of?
around
Yes.
with. Seriously,
Last time,
I mean,
yeah. I was thinking, Minnie, that maybe it would be worth going to have a non-binding resolution to the town to ask the question, like, if we had to make some changes to the schedule, would you be willing to get rid of February vacation so that we could back up our, you know, when we end school?
That
We could still
way
end up having like a
teachers-
long weekend during that time or something instead, but no.
Are you talking about the town or the families?
Town. Send it to like town meeting.
because nowadays, to be very honest, I
Is that a
love
town
the
meeting? I don't think
point.
that's a town meeting.
I love the point.
Yeah, it's not a town meeting.
I don't know how that works.
No, you can do that. They did that with trash fees and stuff like that. Those have been around. Trash
Yeah, but
fees
that's trash.
were voted on at town meeting.
But then you
and
have
non-binding.
contractual implications too. 'cause
Yeah.
isn't
I'm not,
it?
I'm saying it's like a
Big
non-binding.
union
No, if we
negotiation.
ask-
It's not 185
just
days.
our community, I don't care, but I'm just saying if we ask whether or not we can make some adjustments and whether they would prefer to see that we get rid of, say, February vacation so that we can get out on June
Yeah, that
12th or
would-
something
yeah.
like that, or do we want to eliminate all holidays except for federal holidays?
That I wouldn't suggest, but.
I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not-
guess-
These are all good outside of the box suggestions, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
A couple things about
Ton of days
February, just to bring up. Staff members do tend to book years out, just so you know, February vacation.
Sure, I know.
So you would have to give them a heads up more than a year. And then the other thing, and we would have to look at this, Keith, but when I was an elementary school principal, like as I told you guys, we needed that February break to air out the school and get like, and I don't know if that's here or not, but it was where I was.
Well, no, usually there's a deeper cleaning and.
Right.
I do think that we should have a, not even subcommittee, but a school committee member or two with the PD council and central office, work through some options to talk about. We're not going to change this for next year.
No.
Because quite
Of course.
honestly, people are asking, where's the school schedule
I know.
for next year? We need to vote on it. I'm not saying tonight. We need to vote on it this month.
Correct.
And I do think it's a bigger conversation because it is going to be a change that we're potentially proposing. So I think we need a group to figure it
And
out.
it's to address the fact that, we have kids that are in
School in
school
June.
when it's like 100 degrees in Placentino. I mean, it's just,
Yeah, it's
you know,
done.
it's not the best time for learning.
You're right.
So I guess my only other thing I wanted to ask about was the May 8th half-day PD. We really only have about 4 school weeks left. Could
Sorry,
we move that to March?
Yeah, I feel like it shouldn't
It
be.
seems so late in the year.
I think it's a little late too, and that's something, Joni, but actually it was on May, now we have it on May 1st for this one, that you probably have the old version, but that is something that I think we would consider. But part of it is that they wanted some time, like these full day ones, to do full day, then implement some of the things, and then have a
Right.
follow-up training on.
The thing is, though, I have gotten feedback too, because we're going to have 2 PD days in the same month this year. And if you did that, then you'd have 2 again in March, and people are not a fan of having 2 PD days in the same month.
Can I say something as a teacher?
Yes.
We always talk about how, like, well, PD isn't effective, it's that late in the year. I'm going to disagree with that. I don't think we say on May 1st, yeah, we're just riding it out by the end of the year anyway.
No,
That's not it. I'm not
I don't
saying
think
that.
that's true, and I think there's a lot of value to having a PD opportunity when you've had a lot of the year and a lot of time to gather data, to reflect on what has worked, and you're doing restructuring stuff for the following year at
It
that
is a
point.
setup for the next year.
Yeah, and it can be, but it can be more of a hybrid of like, let's look at this data and let's see how it's going to affect our teaching in the future. I think there's definitely value. I like having PD towards the end
Well,
of the year.
and sometimes for a half-day, because you're not doing the full.
And it's just a half day.
A half-day could be that we're now looking at our rubrics and assessing our writing template, things like
I
that.
think there's a lot of value to that.
So we can't have the 1st as a full PD versus the March and the May being half days? Because I can see 28 March.
And extend your year another day, Minnie.
No,
not sure
I think Minnie's saying, could May 1st be one of the full days and replace maybe November 15th with a half day or something?
Yeah, I mean something, because I don't know, I just, the break is bothering me, it's just probably me.
Which
that,
break?
That Wednesdays, like February 7th or November 15th, there's like middle of the week. It's I don't
There's
know,
only
it's-
2 of them.
Yeah, there are 2 of them.
I think it's fine. I also think this year is a great year because some of the other holidays are on the weekends, but usually October is a complete disaster. September and October. This is great compared to how it usually
October
is.
is like there's nothing.
The 2 holidays are on Saturdays. on
This
one.
past year, I don't think I had a full week of school until like November 1st. Like,
And I think that that's
Last
the
year
one
was-
thing is if we get out, Juneteenth falls midweek, so we don't want to get out, you wouldn't want to have school Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. I mean, it could fall that way if we have snow, right? But it's interrupted in the last week. It's just, we're trying to keep kids in school as long as possible and make it meaningful as well.
I'd also like to publicly say that I appreciate that you don't call off school at the drop of a hat because it helps us get out earlier.
That's always a challenge to try to avoid.
Is there any way that we could get ourselves to the 14th so that if we did have a few snow days, it wouldn't push us all the way through?
I think that would be
June
going
20th.
back to a half day on the day before Thanksgiving.
That's what we should do.
Okay, then that's what we should do. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The Wednesday.
I know it's time on
I know.
learning, but I don't care.
Well,
half day,
the time of learning, you won't get that time.
I do care.
That same learning, you won't have, Amanda, in June, right? Like,
You're
so
right.
You're not having it.
Help me explain something.
Seniors are gone.
Yeah.
So a half day for a child would be considered a full day of school for
Yes.
Yes.
It counts.
It counts as a full.
Oh,
Not
But
for
they're
PD,
not-
but for
Got it,
academic.
Yeah, they're
day.
not academic.
It is, but if you think about that, if you think about June 18th,
oh.
it's also to consider the seniors aren't making up any days after specific date. I know
Right.
that's something, but like the seniors have another half day on November 22nd.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, November 22nd, you're right, it's kind of a waste of a day, but so is June 18th.
So maybe, I don't know, I mean, could we break up? This is very interesting. Sorry.
Amanda, I just want to clarify, I wasn't saying that like PD is not useful.
No,
I
I
just
don't
feel
think
like
at all.
it's in the May, it's more the bandwidth. Like I feel like you're, whatever you've got.
Can
at
energize
that
you for
point.
the next year, though, it really can.
So one,
Sets the stage.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily, I feel way more burnt out in like November than in May.
I can
don't feel
imagine
burnt
that.
out in May. It's spring, it's a beautiful time of the year. My classes, routines are all set up. I'm bonded with the kids. I feel the opposite of burnt out.
Yeah,
in May.
November is tough for teachers.
so
I can believe
one thing that we
It's very,
can
very
do,
hard.
if you want to do, we could vote the last day as the 14th, and then we could kind of look at some of these other things and bring it back as a reiteration.
Yeah, that would be nice, actually, to have the 14th. That way,
Barring any mistakes elsewhere, like we
know.
checked it, but.
and then see if we could actually do something of the February vacation, because that, if we can work that around, maybe have 2 days instead. I like the ideas that, that email had.
Yeah, I just think that's a huge cultural shift.
Yes.
You would not want to do that for next year.
Yes.
Now, because
Oh, yeah. No, of
things
course.
are-
Yeah,
but that would be
absolutely.
if you were proposing a study of some sort, you'd want to do
If
that.
you're proposing that, though,
Group.
I would go with somebody also said getting rid of all the, I think you did, Cynthia. You're going to look at getting rid of February. I think you need to look
I
at
think you would just look at everything.
getting rid of all the other holidays other than your federally mandated,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm not, I'm
So
just throwing it out there.
I know
but,
some districts are looking at this
They
right
are.
now,
Other districts are doing.
so I can find out what they're
Joni,
calling.
is there any interest or thought of doing that November 15th, moving that to the 13th? So,
And I know you've got some feedback that you shouldn't do Mondays and Fridays, but would that be just one Monday? And to the
No.
extent it,
yeah, it would be just.
It
one-
would be,
one
I mean,
Monday.
I can imagine the parents being like, why do we have the 15th off and not the 13th?
Yes, exactly.
And as I said, I mean, honestly, that's what I feel.
Yes, it
Middle of
is.
the week is hard.
So I think this is.
I'm just trying to balance it.
We have a meeting next week with the PD Council.
Okay.
We'd want to get their input because part of it is the setup is incredible.
Yep.
So not having a day before, the amount of setup that went into the full-day PD, technology-wise,
Okay.
planning.
We needed that day to run
Well,
around.
exactly, if you're doing a repeat of
That's
the
what we're
other day,
doing.
then yes, we need.
Thursday, we were running around
Yeah.
like doing all this last minute
So that's,
stuff.
yeah.
Then what about doing it on the 9th, so you actually have the 8th or the week before? Doing it on a Thursday.
Yeah, 9th instead of 15th.
Doing the 9th instead
Yeah,
of
That
that's,
really concerns me. I'm just going to throw it out there. Attendance for teachers around another holiday concerns me.
Well, they can't take a personal day.
But if you,
Can't.
What do you mean?
You can't have a personally extended vacation period.
But they do request them.
yes,
You have every right to turn it down.
I understand that, but
And
Just say no.
that's something which is way back when, that was our strategy at that point, to always put a PD day attaching it to.
We did it all the time.
I think we need data to support that because I think I need to look at the attendance right now that we've had.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion.
we do see
to-
higher
to-
absences on PD days. And
Yes.
then
We have a group.
the hard part is that
Look at the calendar.
then we can't make that work up for staff. They're just missing it. And some of it's really, obviously, it's tied to our initiatives. And
Right.
then
I'm just
we-
saying historically, we did do a lot of PD where it was attached to a holiday weekend.
I mean, and that's what
We
we
did it
did.
routinely in January, we routinely did it in other, always in January.
So
but-
I'm
We'll-
serious.
we'll bring those dates
To
back.
have a group look
So,
at the calendar.
I think what's hard, though, you need to make sure you include principals and
Oh, absolutely.
but not all the principals can be on PD council.
No, but
No, I don't
they
think
don't
it's
have to
saying
be
PD
on the
council, I think a
council, but you
separate
could
group,
email the
yeah.
principals, say, give me 3 sentences about what you especially like for PD. Or you could email the principals, hey, what would you think about this, this, this? They don't have to be on the committee.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just saying a small group, like one school committee member or two.
Right.
Do 2 so it's not a subcommittee.
Informally
The PD
meet and
council,
discuss.
Central office, principals, like,
When's the last time you did this?
HFT.
Because you added a bunch of the, I don't know what the date was, but you added a bunch of a few of the holidays not too long ago, right?
It was the year, the last time we actually looked at this calendar was the year that we took out Good Friday, Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippur. That was,
We didn't take them out.
yes,
Suggested.
we
You did?
took them out.
No, we added Diwali was the last time we
took
discussed.
them
it.
out.
when was
Last
that?
time we had a committee, I'm saying, that we talked about it. That's what I'm trying to think.
It was pre-2000.
Lisa and I used to
2000,
council for
I
a
think it was
bit.
2009.
I don't remember when that was.
Maybe.
I mean, so I think what we're saying tonight is like, this year, we're lucky a lot of the holidays are on the weekends. We're probably fine. Maybe we would like to switch one particular day here and there to make us get out the 14th instead. But also, in the future, like for 2024, 25, we have some larger options to explore, such as February vacation, second to last week in August, etc. Is that what everyone is, am I summing up what people
Yeah.
are saying?
Yep.
That was my
I mean,
proposal.
there's
that I
sometimes during our
proposed.
calendar, just because of the way Labor Day falls, we've started school in the 26th or 27th in years past. I mean, we've been starting school then, previously.
When
So-
it's
in
wicked
August.
hot, which
Yeah,
is our
when it's
which is
also
the
hot.
problem.
I know.
Just not we did the week before Labor Day. We've
Yeah.
never been earlier than that.
No, I know, but it just, when Labor Day was like the 1st, we were starting school on like the 25th.
Does anyone want to
26.
second my motion to
What's
have
your
a group?
motion?
I made a motion
To have a group,
create a
not for
group.
this calendar, but for 24, 25 plus, to
Come up with the
examine
second
larger
and
Okay,
larger
sure. I'll second
solution.
your motion, Stacy.
So for a group, moved by Stacy, seconded by Dawn.
No, it was seconded by me.
Oh, seconded by
Cynthia.
Cynthia. Sorry, I keep going to that. So seconded by Cynthia, and can we have a roll call vote?
Can I just get an idea of what that means? What does the strategic plan mean? Who's in it and what are we doing with the calendar?
Call it, I don't know what you call it, a calendar team that is a school or two school committee members, central office, a representation from the principals, representation from the teaching council, and representation from the HFT.
So.
And throw in a parent if you want. Like, no, seriously, like,
No, yeah, just like the strategy plan, yeah.
I just think that we're sitting here arguing this. We don't have other teachers here. We don't have principals here. Like, this is kind of a silly conversation that we.
It's not silly.
Well, in the sense that it's ineffective because it's just us.
I'm just throwing out ideas, that's all I'm saying.
Understood, but we need to have the other.
I get it.
To really
We can- yes.
explore
Yes.
changes to the calendar.
Well, just so you know, and I'm not saying anything, the principals did have a say in all of this. So we do go through that, and the PD council did see it.
Well, I don't know if they saw all the dates. We talked about whether it's going to be all full days or half.
Oh, you're right, you're right, you're
I
right.
just think
I'm
it'd be
sorry.
helpful to have
You're right.
everyone around the table versus, I do. And again,
There's something,
I-
there's gonna be something we don't think of.
And there's like a broader,
Volunteer.
yeah, and there's like a broader,
All right.
I can volunteer.
All right.
Cynthia and Minnie.
Just didn't want to
Yeah.
create something.
So,
Staff.
Stacy, moved by Stacy, seconded by Cynthia, and roll call vote. Ms. Naborski, Ms. Listevinik,
Yes.
Ms. Koshin,
Yes.
Ms. Raffi,
Yes.
Ms. Bigelow,
Yes.
Dr. Savard,
Yes.
Ms. Gupta, yes.
Are you, do you have any
That was the
desire to
next
vote
question.
for the last day
Right.
being the 14th?
Yes.
And then
And then with the
Revisit some of your-
22nd
Right.
I
added
move that we
back
vote for the
in.
last day of the 2023-24 school year be June 14th.
Second.
Second.
Okay, June 14th.
So slow.
June.
And then we'll get any other half-day conferences, anything else that we're not missing for another reiteration.
Okay.
Wait, we don't usually vote this early on the last day of school because of snow days.
Yeah, I know.
No, you re-vote if there's snow
We'll
days.
vote later.
Yeah.
Snow days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, but at least we'll be able to put a calendar
Right?
out.
that's how we're
Yeah.
doing
We
it.
normally don't do that. They normally vote for the whole calendar.
Oh,
Last year.
And then we come back to vote for the last day of school. in
so what
April.
happens is usually they vote
do
the
we
whole
vote it
calendar
today?
and then we bring it back and then we re-vote all year. That's why I was saying right now it'd be easy to just vote the last day since they still have questions.
then you
on
vote
it.
I'm okay with that, we just did it.
Okay, all right. So,
Tell me who picked.
moved
Okay.
by
We're voting the last day of 2024.
Cynthia.
2024, they said
Okay,
2023.
Cynthia and Stacy.
Somebody said 2023.
Roll call vote.
You don't want to vote yet. The
Hold
motion
on.
was wrong.
Are we voting for the last day of 2024 or the
Yes.
last day of 2023?
Somebody said 20.
2024.
See?
You don't
You
know.
said 2023.
Oh,
They wanted the papers. They said 2023.
Right, it's next year's calendar, yes.
So it's
My
2023.
motion
calendar.
was solid. I said 2024.
No, you didn't.
I did too. I said for the 2023-24 school year, the last day of school will be June 14th. Don't tell me what I said. I said what I said.
So last day of June, June 14, 2024, moved by Cynthia, seconded by Stacy, and roll call vote. Ms. Naborski?
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
Listevanik? Ms. Koshin?
Yes.
Ms. Raffi?
Yes.
Ms. Bigelow?
Yes.
Dr. Savard?
Yes.
Ms. Gupta? Yes.
Thank you.
I told you, causing problems. Now would be better than that. I was going to ask for a half day the day before Christmas break, and now I won't if we're getting,
No more.
getting back. So I'm just telling you.
Why would you?
I'm not
Keep
being.
moving.
It's the
All right.
22nd, it's 2 days before.
So
Let's go.
let's, so,
No, throwing that one out.
so I'm moving to superintendent's contract. In your packets, you should have a copy of the contract, and we don't have to discuss it, but we will need to vote on it.
I move that we approve the superintendent's contract as presented.
Seconded by Stacy.
Okay.
Moved
So
by
moved by
Cynthia.
Cynthia, second by Stacy. Roll call vote. Ms. Naborski?
Yes.
Ms. Listernik?
Yes.
Ms. Koshin?
Yes.
Ms. Raffi?
Yes.
Ms. Bigelow?
Yes.
Ms. Savard?
Yes.
Dr. Savard? And Ms. Gupta? All right, and then, yay.
Positive thing.
Thank
All
you.
right, items of information, policy subcommittee minutes, December 8, 2022. Do we need to vote on that?
No,
No, items of
Oh.
information.
just information.
All right, and then policy ADF wellness, no substantial changes.
I think she just cleaned up the template mostly, didn't she?
All right, so our next meeting date is February 16, 2023. And then,
Motion to adjourn.
so, and then we have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
By Stacy.
Second by Stacy.
Okay.
All right, so we'll get to the roll call vote. Ms. Naborski?
Yeah.
Ms. Listenvinik?
Yes.
Ms. Koshin?
Yes.
Ms. Raffi? Ms. Bigelow?
Yes.
Dr. Savard? Ms. Gupta?
All right.
Bye, Catherine.
Good night.
Get some rest.